There we go. So the meeting's being recorded. Send out a link so folks can watch after the fact as well. Must be using the wrong link. Just a I guess the only people in here doesn't really apply to. Just a reminder to those joining on, if we get interrupted, I'll send out a new link so we can rejoin and continue our discussion. And just a quick reminder for the agenda that we have the budget work session and then a shorter truncated regular council work session after that to tackle a few other agenda items. But otherwise, I turn back over to you, Council President.
Thank you. So we have a full agenda. Thank you all for attending. Before we jump into the budget, or probably jump into the budget, I know that Robin Barr would like to just revisit the question of income tax revenue.
First of all, I have to thank Anne for guiding me through the many tables that she sent me and the information she sent me. I kept on making mistakes. She kept correcting me, so thank you for that. What I finally learned after much teaching is that budget committee revenue looked at our November 22 and January 23 receipts from the state, which were extraordinarily high. Is that we should exclude those and then generated an average estimate of the prior 4 years for 2023, and then use that to estimate 2024. What I did when I realized that was I said, okay, what happens if you actually do what budget committees have previously done?
Kabir can't hear.
Robin, I cannot hear you. I wonder if that's true for John too. It's very faint. We have to really strain in. So if there's a way you could speak with a raised voice, or that would be great. Thank you.
I'll shout.
I can barely hear too, so if you want to.
You have a very soft voice.
I'll project, which I do sometimes. Okay, I'll try again.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so it's like this. I calculated the budget the way budget committees have done previously, which is simply to include all 5 years, including the very large payments from November and January in the 5 years. When I did that, I got about $130,000 increase in our state tax revenues by the time you add inflation to it. And so it really leaves us with a dilemma. I wanted the council to know that that's what happens when, if you just apply the regular budget committee procedure to the data, we end up with revenues that are 130% greater than what was given by the budget committee last week. But what budget committee did, and they've got their reasons for doing it, is that no, we're taking out this year's revenues and basing our estimate only on the prior years. And that's why we got the numbers from the budget committee that we did. So that's the story. I'm just leaving it at that. If you want to add to it.
Yeah, and I think the if you look at all of the information that the state provided us, there are conflicting messages. And this is where we got a little bit feeling like, is it better to be in a position of slightly underestimating it or slightly overestimating income tax revenues? So on the one hand, the state said, expect more money in January distributions going forward because the changes in the tax law have changed tax filing behavior such that higher income, there's going to be more people filing late taxes. Okay, great. But at the same time, they also said high income tax filers who are taking advantage of these pass-through entities are incentivized to use quarterly distribution estimated taxes. So you're going to see them doing more estimated tax payments as opposed to just filing late and reconciling later. So, you know, we took into account the fact that, I mean, we always get late reconciling distributions. The question is, how much can we expect and project? So what we said is, let's take out these excess that we saw in tax year 21, which we realized in fiscal year 23, and instead use a more normalized view of those distributions, because we don't know. We have 1 year that is an outlier. And I'm just not comfortable sort of saying project from that 1 year forward. Yes, our income tax base looks like it's improving and that it's higher. That's great news. But on the other hand, high income tax earners represent a huge portion of our tax base. It's highly volatile. The state emphasizes that in their guidance, saying, look, we can't tell you, is this capital gains? Is it, you know, incentive pay? Is it people are earning higher incomes? It's all of those things, right? And so it's very highly unpredictable. And so all we're saying is, from a budgeting standpoint, better to budget income tax more conservatively. If you get a windfall, we've got lots of things in the pipeline from a capital budgeting standpoint that are still awaiting master plans. Put that excess money in your special capital fund where you're still waiting for master plans anyway. In another year, when we get the detailed tax filing data and we see how January distributions play out this next fiscal year, we feel like we'll have a better, a better indicator that this is a trend or not. Because you have to remember, we're budgeting on a fiscal year and we're receiving money based on a tax year. So there's an added complexity. We use the model that was developed by the state using our actual information. They said this is sort of the formula of how to do it. Yes, we do use rolling averages in order to predict things, like even for our fiscal year 23, we're very confident, except for these lingering reconciliations that will happen in the next couple of months, which are pretty small dollar amounts. But we have a good model. We're using the exact same process that the budget committee has used for the last 2 years once we figured out this model from the state. So I feel like we're also being consistent. But I think if you want to be a little bit more aggressive on assuming income tax revenues, we should go ahead and do that. I just think, know that what position do you want to be? We didn't meet our revenue targets or we exceeded our revenue targets.
I think we should go with what the budget committee recommends.
Yes.
I mean,
I'd rather have a windfall than worry about it.
When in the course of our next fiscal year, will we get additional insight into what's happening? November of next year?
And January. So the problem is, because we received such an unusual distribution in January, we have to wait until January. Normally, every other year, we've been waiting until November. Usually by November, we know with probably 90% certainty what our income tax revenue is for the year. Now, what I'm hoping is that we get the underlying tax year 22 data before January of 2024. So in other words, we can keep doing some analysis between now and then to sort of say, okay, are the trends holding? I mean, part of my concern, quite honestly, is that I feel like, are the tax year 21 part of the COVID catch-up? And so therefore inflated because of that, because of the pass-through entities, because of a lot of things that may not be continuing on. So that's the part that we're trying to
And
figure
I
out.
would add, that's partly my concern too, is that we are clearly in the post-COVID period. We're not out of it yet. And we are seeing it in the broader economy, and it's definitely impacting, how income plays out in our neighborhood. So I think a conservative approach, and that, it's not radically conservative. You're using the word conservative, it may think a major haircut. It's not that radically conservative, just more thoughtful and measured is the right way to go. And I want to remind the council that, not this year, but currently in the 5-year plan, which we are not going to introduce and adopt, it's just a plan, we are indicating, tax increase. So it's in our interest to track this very closely, come back to this next year and then make a call. So it has implications for not this immediate year that we are determining, but definitely for years moving forward.
Let me just add one other thing, which is that it has introduced, the big payments that came this year have introduced more uncertainty into our budget. That's clear. What we should be thinking then
I'm
is.
sorry, Robin, could you repeat that again? What has introduced uncertainty?
Here we go again. All right. What the big payments this year has introduced more uncertainty into our budget.
What do you mean by that?
That it creates a greater variance across the years, if you've got that concept. We
No,
go
I
from-
don't, I'm struggling. Can someone else?
All right.
explain that to me?
Our November payment in 2021 was $40,000 approximately. Our November payment in 2020, sorry, was $40,000 approximately. In 2022, it was $423,000. That's a tenfold difference. That's what I mean by high variability introducing uncertainty. How do you predict the next year when you see such variance between the years? That's
Right,
that's
so
the
if
problem.
uncertainty in predicting the revenue, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
How is that inconsistent with what the budget committee chairs?
Well, I'm not saying that it's not inconsistent. What I'm saying now is that we should focus on the rainy day fund. We should increase money going to the rainy day fund because of the greater uncertainty in our budget. What the rainy day fund does, if it goes wrong, we've then got reserves that we can put in. So we really should think about the rainy day fund when we're working with our excess 23 budget, which we have now. We've got a very large budget for 23, thanks to all this money. We should think about adding to the rainy day fund. And for 24, as honestly, my own prediction is we will do better than your numbers suggest. And if we do, we should also think about the rainy day fund in 2024.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
That's a good point.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us dig into that a little bit more, to understand the picture. But my sense of the council is that for this budget planning effort, we want to proceed with the budget committee's recommendation. And I like your idea of us looking at the 23 and 20, any excess in 2024 and pay them for the fund. So we have more cushion for this variability that we're experiencing.
So the current 5-year plan contemplates growing it up to 10.5 months of operating expense. So keeping in mind that there's always already, the current budget plan assumes contributions to the rainy day fund. Our expense base is constantly growing, so it's, we pegged it to months, and then we backed out contributions from there, as opposed to before it was sort of, we kind of grew it that way and then figured out what that contribution would be. But the point is that by the end of the 5 years, we're up to 10.5 months, keeping in mind that we also keep 2 months in our operating reserve or unencumbered reserves. So technically speaking, the current budget that you have in front of you contemplates about 12.5 months of total reserves. Now, the rainy day fund reserve target is 12 months on its own. So we should be targeting, in theory, a total of 14 months, unless the council thinks that's too much. But I'm just saying that there is a resolution in place to target 12 months and have about 2 months in unencumbered reserves.
By the way, as a quick aside, the budget committee and the council liaison, we discussed that we may want to relook at how we calculate and think about the rainy day fund. And this is sort of the post-budget season homework we've given ourselves, and we might come back to the broader council. Because right now we are bound by the resolution. Just to be clear, we are saying we need it, we should be contributing to it, but the calculations around it sometimes are not clear cut. And we need to maybe rethink that, because there's a reason for so many years we have not yet made 12 months, and so we may want to rethink how we move in that direction. I just wanted to remind you, Steve, that at the end of last meeting, we had identified 3 agenda items. We don't need to follow that, but I just wanted to remind the group. One was we had given Matt, if we have resolved the income projection issue, we had given Matt a series of questions and he was going to clarify things and he has some updates. We were going to talk about, fees. And then we were going to go through, each council member's specific proposals, either to, suggest that we don't fund something in the budget or add something that's missing in the budget. That was the agenda we had agreed last week, just reminding everyone that we could go down that path now if you're feeling ready.
Yep, so I was planning to turn it over to Matt to help guide us through answers to questions and any budget line items you want to look at. Because you can pull it up for us, right?
Sure, yep. The main point, I guess, is that just from a 10,000 foot view, the changes that I've made didn't have a huge impact on our bottom line. So for the sake of saving paper, I didn't bother printing out new things for us. Because in general, we'll be looking at the same bottom line numbers. But in any case, let's see, share. Just go over some of the changes. So working, I guess, from the bottom up, budget contingency, we'd previously budgeted using the full budget contingency for the year. So I brought that down to just using the proportional amount that's left this fiscal year. That number probably, again, will be lower because it's there in case we have a huge overrun or something like that. I'm not anticipating anything big like that, but like I said, just for budgeting purposes right now, I just kind of did proportionally based on the time of what's left this year.
Matt, just
Yes.
to clarify, are you saying what are you doing for fiscal year 24?
No changes to fiscal year 24. This is just for our kind of bottom line, long term. I highlighted in yellow for fiscal year 23. I'm not anticipating us spending a full $50,000.
I have a quick question there. Well, maybe we can do questions after you've gone through everything. Keep going.
There's just a few. So
And your point is just it flows down to the unencumbered reserves.
exactly, yeah. Lighting, that was one of the bigger ones that we talked about. Number one, I think Councilmember Barr had mentioned that we had held on to old numbers that were a little bit rougher than what was actually given to us by Pepco. So that's why you see more specific numbers up there now. And they've essentially been flipped. So in talking to Pepco, they did say that they would prefer to do one invoice to us so that they can do it all as one work order. I've still, so what I've done here is anticipating in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to put in the order with them. They'll give us the design, give us the invoice that we sign off this fiscal year. I haven't worked this out with Pepco fully. I would still like us to hold off on making the whole payment upfront, just to have some incentive for them.
Well, to be
Oh,
sure, they're not,
totally.
to be sure, they can't require the full payment.
Right,
Yeah, no
right.
way.
So what?
But I mean, it's like a deposit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't get paid until they're up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think, I can't imagine that's their policy.
So I think probably what we would do is work, I think I had mentioned previously is, they can invoice us for the whole thing and we would structure it to pay a third at contract signing, a third when work begins, and then the final third when all of the work is completed in fiscal year 24. I worked out some new, more precise numbers on concrete. I think previously we were just saying 50,000 across the board. This is based on a percentage of the total work that's being done on the roadways. So that's why it fluctuates a little bit more, but in terms of bottom line numbers, it's not a huge change. I think we felt like this could potentially be one that we realize we're not spending as highly on. Alternatively, I think it's one that we could end up paying more on if it turns out, for instance, there's WSSC work that's going on Surrey Street today, and found out that underneath about 2 inches of asphalt, we have concrete under our streets. So that could potentially be an extra expense that for the entire project. So just something to keep an eye on. One that I added that wasn't fully integrated previously is solar panel installation that we'll talk about at our budget, at our work session afterwards. So what this assumes is doing the town hall installation this year and then an installation at the town pool in fiscal year 24.
Excuse me, I thought we said that we would not do town pool because of the trees.
That
They said that they could do it then or something,
They-
but maybe that's something we want to look at to
I
not
guess
do.
so.
I put it in there to as a talking point, but I think it's definitely worth the discussion. In essence, we get more money because we tie into the DC electrical grid at the pool. So we can cover about 25% of the pool's electrical costs year over year
It's amazing how much more.
on
you
some
get.
parts. And it ends up being about as cost effective as putting it here at the town hall where we're covering 95% of it. So it's something to consider. It is a bigger down payment. I think I could pull up the details for it, but
Just here.
Matt.
yes.
Isn't there also just a practical issue? We are going to embark on a major construction work on the pool. Is this something we want to do once that is done? So I know these are different parts of the pool. This is the pool house, but it's going to be quite disruptive there for a period of time over the next 8-12 months.
Definitely, and that's why the way that I structured it here is to sequence the town hall first, because this would allow us later, this time next year, to possibly do it at the pool after construction's completed at the pool is closed, and they can get them up in 2 weeks.
That's what I'm questioning, given that projects of that size tend to just take longer than we think they will. And this seems to be a lot to get done. And the priority is sort of very fundamental renovations at the pool. And so this was one of the things I wanted to bring up when we do our go around, which is that we have good figures here. There's clearly town and council interest to do it, but maybe we do it in fiscal year 25 and we move that number into the special capital fund and draw from it when we are ready to do it operationally. Just a proposal to the group. I'm concerned that we'll budget it and it's all good, but in reality, we won't get there for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah,
Matt, when they gave you a bid for the pool to do these solar panels, did they tell you how long it would take? Because my experience is it goes very fast.
but they have to cut down trees and stuff.
Not this, so this wasn't, it didn't involve taking down trees.
Even
or
at the
anything.
pool?
Even at the pool,
But
yeah.
there's 2 people said they couldn't do it there because of all the trees.
He had when he initially went, he said it probably wouldn't be worth it, but once we decided to move forward with this company, he offered to do a more comprehensive study of the pool and said, there's a certain section of the pool that you can put them on. There's a other section, I think in the things that I sent, I included for the council, there was, it shows the amount of electricity basically the efficiency that each panel would get at different sections. So it wasn't a full array on the entire pool, but that we
Pool
do,
house, just
we,
you put-
pool house, I'm sorry, thank you. But that there was a certain section, especially because it's pointing due south, that it got enough sunlight.
Okay,
that we
without
felt
taking
like
down
it-
trees.
it would still be worth it, even without significantly trimming or cutting down trees.
Keep going, Matt. What else?
I think the other changes I made were relatively small. Changing the website will actually Linda and I are gonna be doing training for our new website. Hopefully on Friday, so we'll have a new website up, and so we'll just be paying a smaller fee just for the hosting of the website, so able to reduce that cost. Those were really the changes that we had talked about. I know that somebody else had flagged the question of the pool bridge. I unfortunately didn't have an opportunity to get any additional follow-up on that, so I just left in place what we had talked about previously. But that kind of covers, I think, the topics and items that have been flagged previously for us.
With regards to the bridge to the pool house, maybe Robert or Jeffrey can weigh in, but I recall we did a fairly major renovation to strengthen and make that bridge functional. There are issues with ice forming on it after the renovation, but structurally, I thought it's just like a new bridge. I mean, I don't even understand where this.
The problem is that whoever put the bridge in failed to put a camber on the surface.
Right.
And that's why water and ice and snow sit on the bridge and are eating into the wood on the bridge, which is happening now and will continue. And I mean, to protect the bridge, rather than have the town staff coming to clear it every time it snows or ices or whatever, we should either keep the bridge in place and simply put a camber on it so the water runs off it, or replace the bridge and put a proper camber in. That's what we should do.
Right, but we don't need to,
We don't need to do it
we
today.
don't need to do it now, and given that this winter, there was no, I don't think there was ice more than one day this winter. And I don't think it's that much of a burden on this. I don't.
Jeffrey, you trust climate change
The big-
more than I do, is all I can say.
The reason why there was a lot of urgency in that bridge is that the previous council, that was one of their priorities. I don't think it's the priority of this council, and it's a new day. So I don't know what the burden on the staff is going over there when it's icy to put stuff down. Until we do more research before we spend all this money.
I do agree that because of the issue that it has draining, and even putting the salt on it, for example, it probably won't have as long a lifespan as we were maybe hoping, however long ago it was installed. I can't remember, 10 years ago, maybe less than that. In any case,
Just to clarify, is the bottom line that the bridge gets icy and is perilous, and we are not on top of de-icing it?
no, the bottom line is that the bridge is very flat. So when it rains and then
Yes.
when it freezes, the water tends to just sit there.
Yes,
So we did, I think maybe 2 years ago, we had raised the beams to
I see.
allow some of the water to dissipate off the edge of it. I think that helped
that's what
on the
Steve was
on
referring
the
to.
margins.
Yeah,
But the bottom line is less about the bridge being unsafe and more about just that its lifespan is impacted by the water sitting there, I think.
I
But I
see.
think that, didn't we talk about that even with the pool renovations, we would want to wait till after that because they're gonna have their trucks that come, back and forth over that bridge.
Yeah,
So we want to get a new one to then have that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's right. And I think Matt had suggested it in a subsequent year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we have it in FY 25 right now.
yeah.
Because remember, you're prioritizing things here, and that doesn't seem to be
Mm-mm.
the priority.
The pool's more important than the bridge. In my opinion.
You gotta be able to get to the pool.
I was gonna say, those trucks may take out the bridge.
Yeah, but the
We can
bridge
swing
isn't-
over
the bridge
that.
isn't
I just
gonna-
think the road
the bridge isn't gonna collapse.
No, I don't think the bridge is in danger of collapsing.
There- see
Well,
there,
well, the
Uh,
bottom line is,
Unless there's an earthquake.
the bottom line is that the pool construction is a really big lift,
They have one.
Yeah.
you know? I was saying that the bottom line is that the pool construction is a really big lift. And with any construction projects, you have to multiply by 3 the time it will take. Things will go wrong, timelines will get extended, and we should just get this done right. And adding anything else would probably not be prudent at this time.
Except you have to be done. It's fine.
Right.
right,
That too, I didn't want to say it out loud, but we may brace a later start. This could happen. We just need to be ready for this. But inconvenience of one summer and then an upgraded pool for many summers is worth it.
Yes.
Did you get in it?
Steve, does it make sense to go to the next, I don't know what the group thinks, should we go down to the next item, or which was, we had tabled discussing fees. I'm not 100% sure how it came up, but it became an agenda item for this session. Or we could do that at the end and go around the table with specific proposals council might have on what they would like either removed or questions they have or things they would like to add. Either way, just putting that out there for the group.
So I thought the fees was, that prompted a brief discussion on the revenue committee, how we needed to get the revenue committee rejuvenated and provide some recommendations. But personally, I don't think it's an appropriate use of our time this evening to try and dig into, should the pool fee be $3 a visit or $4 a visit?
The only thing I did think of in terms of fees that might be worth considering budgeting wise is if we did want to. We have this added expense of stormwater review and currently no stormwater fee. So if we did want to budget, if we're budgeting for 3 reviews of stormwater every month, do we want to think about a number, are applicants responsible for half the cost of that? So we want to budget in that in our fee structure, something like that. That was.
And I think the fees
sounds
that you
good.
want to talk about are the fees that are related to staffing. The tennis fee and the pool fee aren't really related to staffing. So the fees that you want to look at are the building application fees. And are they competitive with the other municipalities around here? Because you wouldn't want someone to not buy a house here because our fees are so much higher than somewhere else. And then you want to take into account how much it costs to do these applications and the staffing required. Those are the fees that you want to look at, and that's not really. I mean, it could be when Councilmember Kumar, when the revenue committee was put together, they didn't really want to be involved with that kind of thing. So it might be, I don't know if you're going to get them to work on it between now and when you want to vote on this, but that is something that the council can look at.
Did they previously submit recommendations, the revenue committee?
No,
Because I know they weren't. They were
I don't
working
think
on
they did.
stuff.
But
They did submit a set of, they submitted a set of recommendations. This was now in the fall.
On building fees.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was for, but
I
they
don't
did
think-
that- yeah, I
you
don't
know,
recall it now.
We had a different vision about that committee. I wanted that committee to weigh in on the tax rate and all that other stuff, but I don't
That's up to us. That's the council.
I don't know that they were interested in
Unfortunately.
doing any fee.
We have to weigh in on that.
I don't think they want to do
None of
fees.
the political.
The- the-
Yeah.
the pool committee several years ago made a recommendation to raise the fees, and it came to the council. I wasn't on the council then.
Right, council's turned it down.
And the council turned it down. And I know, I personally did a whole survey of all the pools around us, and I got all the fees. So maybe this gets kicked back to the pool committee, or maybe it's just something we do. I actually suggest we do.
I agree with Debbie on that. I think we should do it. But there is in this, so remember our task is the upcoming budget. There is a proposal to remove some fees, if I'm not mistaken, Matt. From one of
Yes.
the committees. So that is implicated in this conversation. Can you remind us what that is?
Yeah, thank you. So I requested from the committees to submit proposals for expenditures, and the pool committee actually came back and recommended that we remove the fees for the early morning swim and water aerobics programs. So that's a total of, I think it's $5,500 a year or something. So it's not something that makes or breaks the budget, but it's a reduction of about $5,500 every year.
Would you like the rationale behind that? Rationale behind that is that we would make those two programs more inclusive instead of exclusive. Right now, the morning swim is very exclusive. And in other pools around town, they have early, excuse me, they have early morning swim, they have aerobic classes, nobody pays for it. They go down to their pools and they do these things. When water aerobics first began in this town, that's how we did it. We just went down and we did it. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, I don't remember when, it became a fee associated with that. And so our feeling was that if we took away the fees and everybody had to sign up, just like we do for a lane, then it makes it an even playing field. Everybody gets to swim if they want to. Instead of the few of us that have really enjoyed this, and I am one of the few, let me tell you. And it has been a wonderful thing for me, but I realize it's not inclusive.
Well, that's the same rationale that was used when it used to be, remember, maybe some, not everybody knows, that it used to be a membership fee for the pool. And that was taken away because it made it more, so more people would use it. It's also part of what you're paying your taxes for. So to me, that makes perfect sense. It's like when you join a club, a health club, the group X classes are free. And so is the use of the pool, you just have to sign up.
But isn't the thing with the early morning swim, wasn't that because you have to hire lifeguards then to be
Right.
there
Right, but
earlier?
it's your decision on whether that can be an added service that's provided.
They have a coach for water aerobics too.
Yes, Shannon, there is a cost, and I
Yeah,
think,
there- of course there is.
and there is, the proposal is, there are two big picture things I would say, when we say, oh, it's just $5,000 and it's $30,000 over 5 years, it's a small dollar amount. But if you take 10 of these items across the board, then it becomes a meaningful amount. And there are a number of such things. So it's worth keeping that in mind, that in itself, it might be small. The second is that I think we, are in this 5-year plan, are saying taxes will go up, right? That's the message. We're not adopting that, but that's the message. Fiscal year 25 right now. It's been the message for a few years. So against that backdrop, I think, we need to really be thoughtful of every dollar. And this was why I pointed to you, Debbie, last week, right? This idea of being, fiscally responsible. And the last thing I would say is that I don't know whether we can practically sort of say one set of fees go away and the others stay. I think that's why I think we need to take a comprehensive look. And if Revenue Committee feels it's politically a hot potato and hard to do it, well, we will have to take it on, but we'll have to look at it comprehensively. I'm uncomfortable even to sort of make a call now, even though the rationale is very legitimate, although I would love to see some data, because we would need to then look at all the other fees in play.
I mean, a little bit of data, first of all, I do remember an intense discussion at council last year when there was a proposal to increase the aerobics fee to $12. And we had most of the individuals who participate in water aerobics participate via Zoom to oppose this shocking increase. So we need.
By
basically-
$2, right? 10 to
It
12.
was actually, it was gonna go up by $4, and so
$4.
we actually talked it down to $10. And so it became $10 last year. And a remarkable thing happened, which is that the number of people going to water aerobics increased. To the extent Lucy Freeman said, we made a profit. in
By
the
how
end."
many? By how
That's not
much?
the point.
Robin?
That's not the point,
I-
we made a profit.
I'd have to get the figures from Lucy to be
It's not
exact.
two more people, right? Because
Probably three.
You can
but-
get figures from Linda. Linda's got the figures. She's on a code.
Okay, so let me add, since you're discussing fees and maybe you're not necessarily gonna take any action this year, but
we
another
can't
issue-
eliminate the 4,000, Jeffrey, though. That's the action.
Oh, okay.
There is a
Wait,
proposal.
Let me throw in,
Well-
let me throw in another, let me just throw in some other issue here. Remember, there's also been a discussion in the past about what is the purpose for guest fees for the pool and the unfairness of that. And the possibility, one idea that had come up in the past is that every household be issued a certain number of guest passes for the season for free. And then after that, because again, we're not, making money on something, that's not what we're here for. We might be here to try to cover a service. but we're not-
Exactly.
It's not about,
Exactly.
we're not trying to
Exactly.
create fee, we're trying to create fees to make everything function better, that's all.
100%.
So I think when you have this discussion in the future about all these fees, the whole issue of guest fees should come up, because there's a lot of inequities there.
I appreciate that, Jeff. I'm totally with you. I think for this year coming, I'm not ready to just arbitrarily yank this off. And so I say we keep the fees. We do this discussion. That's my humble proposal. I might be a minority. And we do this thoughtful work and plan it out. We may come out ahead for everyone in town as a result, as Jeffrey's intimating.
I think we need to have this a very thoughtful discussion about fees. But I want to throw one thing in. If we raise the pool guest fees a bit, we would we probably more than cover all these special programs we're now
But
gonna put in the
that's not-
budget.
I know.
That is Jeffrey's point. That is.
That's-
I know it's not
that's
Jeffrey's
the
point.
but
I know
we're
it's not.
committing
But we
toward
can, that's why we need to have a thoughtful discussion
But I
about
mean, if
what
you-
our goals are.
But if you have like a grandchild that wants to go to the pool and you pay, a certain amount of guest fee every week like that for your grandchild to go to the pool and be able to use it, I mean, why does that deserve a fee, but then early morning swim doesn't, and,
I think this is a much
water
larger- this is
aerobics
a-
doesn't?
I don't know that
like-
we want to have this now, but I
Yeah,
hear you.
yeah, but like.
Yeah, we are not ready
Oh,
to, yeah. I also, Shannon, you're the tennis committee liaison. The tennis folks are ready to raise fees, I've heard multiple times. So I think I would, I'm with Jeffrey. We are not cost recoverable on these services. I'm pretty confident we're not. We can do unit cost accounting and figure it out, but I'm pretty sure we're not. And so I think that is the goal. If we can get there, that would be awesome. And it's how we get there. It could be a surcharge, it could be a town-wide fee, it could be lots of other ways. I was hoping for that creativity from the ref committee, but maybe we take it up on ourselves to do it.
Yeah, so just quick food for thought, not fleshed out, but in budget discussions, I know that at least Garrett Park has, they have kind of an administrative advantage that they have, in addition to their property taxes, which the county runs them, collects them, and then gives them back to us. They have a separate refuse collection fee for its residents that the county also imposes. So that could be something that the revenue committee could also look in if we did a townwide recreation fee or something that's part of tax collection that reduces some administrative burden of having people to Venmo and collect it on their account and things like that. But something just to think about maybe for future years.
So the proposal.
Just say, Kabir, can I
Oh,
just say
go
one
ahead.
quick thing on math? I think the 5,500 was just the revenue side of it, right? It wasn't the cost side of it.
Yes.
Right, the
Yes.
So I just wanted to say, just clarify that at math, that when you're thinking about that, you have to think of both the revenue and the cost that is now not being covered by that revenue, right? So it's like a little bit of a, rather than a zero, it's a, you're just having that cost. And then the other thing I would say is that last year we looked at the value of the pool, and I think that that's probably not communicated enough to the town, which is that we are not a membership pool, but we are effectively a membership pool in the sense that every resident has access to that pool, and that creates a lot of value for homeowners. And when you start to compare the membership fees versus the cost to run our pool, and you do the math of like, and it's hard because it's hard to do the math on what the pool costs us, but if you divide it by the number of households, I mean, people are getting a bargain.
Totally.
Compared to the value that as homeowners, they get when they go to sell their house. People
Yes.
have access to all of these facilities.
That increases the value of all the properties.
Yeah, so anyway, that's it. I just hope that like the revenue, or somebody could take that on and communicate that a little bit better. So
That should be, someone should write an article about that.
I nominate Anne.
Because, in the past, when residents have said, I don't want to be paying for somebody else's pool use, then the response to that is, but this pool and the availability of it adds to the value of your property. It's the same thing when taxpayers complain about why are they paying for public schools? Because they don't understand the value of that system for everybody's quality.
Jeffrey, I'm not going to argue with that point, but there's a concept of relative value. And those who use the pool heavily get more value out of the pool than those who use it lightly. And those who use it lightly get more value out of the pool than those who do not use it at all. So, I mean, there is an argument for fees, even though it gives value to all the homes. And that's all I'm saying at this point. Okay?
Yeah.
Right,
That's what the
actually,
5
yeah.
years decide.
Yeah.
5 years decide.
I was saying that that's probably the most we can discuss about fees in this budget context. It doesn't seem sensible to revoke those fees right now without this comprehensive view. Should we move on to the fun part where we basically destroy everything Matt has proposed and go line by line and
Yeah, let's go. Let's blow through this. I'm ready.
So which spreadsheet are we working off? Which one?
we don't have to go line by line. I think what our thinking was, folks have had this material for a week. You got the full overview last week. You understand the big chunks. You know that we are proposing a 5-year outlook where taxes go up. As Anne explained, we are not meeting 12 months RDF right now. So, we can be more thoughtful here if there are ways in which we can be. And I think it's worth doing that and going across the room and sharing our perspectives on that.
Well, thank you very much. That lead in. The one thought I wanted to share with the council is, I know we have in our 5-year plan to increase our property taxes, but personally, I would like to have the vision, and hopefully we could try to execute a plan that would allow us to not raise taxes. And obviously, there are trade-offs. So from my perspective, maybe that means we don't build up a reserve fund as rapidly as we'd like to, although, the trade-off is we could be entering a period, we are entering a period of increased risk or variability in the fund. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily the place that you would do the trade-off as an example of trade-offs, or, yeah, so I don't.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm just not committed to that.
Yeah. I'm more with Robin on this, which is we need to think about, as a sort of exercise, we should try to get to what you're saying, Steve. See if we can not increase taxes, and also try to get to whether we can increase our RDF. And I say this because I know there's uncertainty as we've discussed today about our revenue, but that has existed for years. But I also think there's there are a lot of things around the corner that we're not clear on. For example, We're able to do these major capital projects right now because we've been beneficiaries of a grant. But in reality, imagine if we were not in a position to do that. Imagine if the pool was locked up in disrepair. That would have major consequences for home values and the quality of life in this town. So we do need to plan ahead, both on capital, and we need to plan ahead for the unexpected. You know, if suddenly a sinkhole emerged by the side of the tennis courts, which I believe a small one did in the last 2 years, you know, how would we go about addressing that? That's truly, you know, the rainy day fund type of activity. So I encourage us to drive as much discipline. We may not get there, but at least from a goal perspective, we should drive as much discipline to get there.
Okay, I want to say one other thing about property taxes. When you have a discussion, and the president has raised about property taxes, you really need to also look at what are the property taxes of the surrounding municipalities. Because again, back to the value of your tax dollar in Somerset, you get parkland, you get a pool, you get tennis courts, you get a batting cage, although I want to get rid of that. You get a highly functioning concierge type government, which is providing so many services.
Semi-functional, just kidding.
And so
You forgot the beehives.
I think you get a beehive. So I think you get these wonderful events that we put on and all that. So in order to have this debate, you need to see what is the tax rate in Chevy Chase Village, in the town of Chevy Chase, in Glen Echo, and all these places. And before because you want to have a meaningful discussion based on information. And that, I think, is one of the most valuable pieces. That's what I wanted to add to this conversation.
Agreed.
May I make a comment here? I think that regardless of whether the property tax goes up by a penny or two, people are always going to move here. This is a very desirable neighborhood, as you were just extolling, Jeffrey. And I think that, you know, whether there's more fees or less fees for the permits, or the property tax is 12 cents versus 10 cents, it really is not going to affect people moving in. What might be affected is if we could raise the fee by 5 cents, you know, to bring it in line with conceivably the surrounding area. But of course, no one wants to do that. So I'm not sure how productive a discussion would be. Over.
So,
You never know.
yeah, Matt can run that scenario for you to sort of see if you take the tax increase out, what does it do? I mean, I did it and I'm not sure I have the latest version, Matt, but I have to bring RDF down to 8 months in 5 years. So we have to really dip into the RDF in order to achieve that right now, based on the capital plan that's assumed in this. So you're gonna have to immediately go through those capital plans that are budgeted for the next 5 years and start making some trade-offs if you want to do that. Because I could see a scenario where you kept RDF sort of flat, and even by keeping it flat in terms of months, you have to add to it because our expenses are going up. So I could see a scenario where you could sell that, but that still is going to require you to make trade-offs in capital plans if you want to keep the budget,
Okay.
the tax rate.
And another fact that you need to weigh is, so a 1 cent increase in the property tax translates to how much for a household? Isn't it like, well, how much is, John, like $100? How much is
It's a
1
negligible
cent?
amount.
Depends on the value of your house, right?
It's a negligible amount.
Yeah, and just remember, we live in a town where the average resident is willing to pay $100 to a kid to take snow off the sidewalk.
Well, I will say that because we do have the property tax file, house by house, we could actually tell you what everybody's taxes would be with the 2 cent increase
Yeah.
that's proposed.
And it's real, compared to what you're paying to the county, which is like tens of thousands, you're talking about some pocket change.
I get to think on the sunny side now. It may be that our revenues are such that we won't need to increase our property taxes because our revenues are in fact increasing. They are so uncertain at the moment, that's as likely an outcome as any.
You know,
I was
that's,
just trying to share my vision for the future. I'm very glad we don't have to have that intense debate and careful calculations tonight.
Yeah, I
think
think
it's a
that
good
we're gonna
vision.
know more in like another year from now, and we're gonna see like what the trend is, and if it's stable or not stable, then we can kind of relook at it all in a year.
I agree with Shannon. I mean, that said, I do have, in terms of our third agenda item, some specific proposals to consider that are actually on the OpEx side. That, you know, as I was saying earlier, they are on their own small items, but they add up to $200,000-$300,000 over a 3-4 year outlook. So I'm happy to go through them and table them here for all of your consideration. Again, with that lens that I mentioned earlier, try not to burden our residents with more taxes, try to be prudent and get to the 12-month RDF. As a thought exercise, how do we get there? So I'm happy to go through that. I would love to hear from others too, if they have similar ideas. Either way is fine, but we should try and do that as a matter of process on this budget.
Great, let's start.
Thank you. Right, does anybody else have any items they want to, or should we start with Kabir's list? I'm happy. Go for it, Kabir.
Okay. All right. Remember, don't shoot the messenger, okay? And the messenger is not in person, so.
Not here.
Is that why you're not
Yeah,
here,
very
council
strategic.
member? Is that why you're not here?
I'm as far away from Jeffrey as I can be right now. So I'm gonna start with 62908.
Where's that?
That's project management support.
Can you tell us what page it is?
This is page
That
6.
Matt would have to tell you.
Page 6.
He's looking at the numbers. You see that on the left-hand side? The-
Six
the
two
journal
one.
entry numbers.
So it's line 124 on page 6.
Okay, got it.
Fold
Are you with me, everyone?
out. Yep, project management support.
So as you can see, Matt's notes on the side there, there are two dimensions to this. There's what's been proposed for fiscal year 24, and then what is being proposed moving forward, you know, and with an eye to what will happen in future years and also our ongoing discussions, I'm not confident that we need to budget for all of this as things stand now. You know, I can personally get comfortable. So another quick background note. Some of us have been in discussions with the environmental committee, or not in discussions, but they've been in discussions. And they are reconsidering whether, you know, setting up an apiary in town is actually sensible from an environmental perspective. There's been some new research. I haven't followed it closely. Steve and Robin would have a view. I also personally not a fan of items like $2,500 general support. And so keeping those two in mind, I was suggesting $5,000, and then that's it for fiscal year 24. And I can't imagine you would need, given the new staffing, Matt, anything more moving forward. So that's proposal number one.
Can we stop and ask questions after this before you go on?
Yeah.
Matt? So Kabir, you want to cut out the 2,500 for the general support?
I don't understand what it is, so I'm proposing cut it out.
So
I
let's find out
understand
what is it.
5,000
Let's ask
Manning.
what it is.
Let's see what it is before we
Yeah.
cut it out.
Well, what specifically I know I would like to do is, we've done some ad hoc work with a computer tech guy that's helped us. He helped set up the improved Wi-Fi in here, for example. And one of the things that has just continually been on the back burner, but you all have experienced is an issue, is our email setup and situation. And we'd also like to get the town over on a .gov government. So I've talked to him about helping us get actual workable town of Somerset email accounts that I think will be an added improved service to town residents, as well as our administration in-house to get that working.
But do you need that in the following years too?
And that's a bargain. Right. Okay, so.
Probably, that makes sense, you know,
Do you need that in 25, 26, 27 too?
it's not,
Well,
it's
that's
not
what we're
anything
talking about.
specifically earmarked for the 5-year budget, you know, for the 5-year fiscal plan. So, I mean, I wouldn't push back against eliminating it in future years the same way I would say, actually, there's something important that I'd really like to use that money for in the upcoming fiscal year.
But you're only, aren't you, you're only talking about the budget for this year, Councilor?
Yes, yes, but I noted that items we agreed to this year kind of have staying power in subsequent years. So they are implicated, I think.
Well, I would think that that is something, 2,500 might be under what it might cost. And I think ongoing to have tech support for the computer, that's not very much money, really. But
I agree. Like I said, each of these items by themselves are not, but when you add them up as we go through, they do add up.
I mean, it's a good question. I'm glad you cleared it up.
I'm glad to clear it up, but I don't think we should take.
But everyone should know that our system was not set up correctly from the beginning. And it's dysfunctional right now.
And similarly, Jeffrey, are we doing $5,000 worth of scanning every year?
That's.
What is that?
Naturally,
standard?
So the 5,000 in scanning was the history and archives. They did a scanning project this year, and it's a continuation of that. Essentially, what they've done sequentially so far is we've got all the documents scanned. Now it's a question of sorting them out and creating searchable files, organizing them in a way that's searchable, that if people are doing a history project, for example.
But it's
But
also.
these are volunteers, right? Do we need to pay them?
No, but also, Councilor Kumar, one thing that you need to know that maybe predates your service is there is a state historic records law that almost every municipality in Maryland is out of compliance with. We are probably one of the first to be almost in compliance. And so that's why we hired Donna.
You hired someone, okay.
We hired someone, but there's ongoing, and I think that perhaps we could get Donna to explain it to you, or Paige, the chair, Paige Woodley, the chair of the committee, might explain it to you. But
But
thanks for asking that question.
And to answer the second part, the 5,000 for scanning is only included in FY '24. The 1,400 is $2,500 for general IT support. And the proposed budget has us bumping up to that second tier for the beekeeping in fiscal years. So that, you know, that could be something to consider.
Can we talk about the beekeeping?
Well, would it be easier to go through all the committees' requests, committee by committee? Or, I mean, I don't know, because I mean. don't
Matt
you
has
guys have
already
to-
done that. Matt has already done that, is my understanding. So it's
Okay,
probably
so
better, yeah, to go with our own proposal.
This reflects all your recommendations, right?
Yeah. So he is proposing this, he's not just passing through a committee.
Fair enough.
I was surprised to see this beekeeping number, because I thought we had went down to the middle level.
That's what we're gonna be discussing.
Well, it hasn't been
We're
passed
agreed
yet.
to.
He's just
Okay.
putting, so that,
Is
I
it
think
placeholder?
that's a figure that you're not gonna be able to decide
Okay,
until the.
Then why put it in?
Because this is the proposed budget that's being introduced, and it's the proposal, and then by the time it's voted on, you'll know the right number to put in. So you don't need to spend a lot of time
All right.
okay.
on
All
it.
right,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
I'm glad you brought it, I'm glad you brought it up, but
All right, item number 2, 62803.
Where's that?
That's
Just right above that. Yep.
2150?
So Matt, here you're estimating this based on 3 reviews per month. at
Yes.
1250. Is that a high estimate given a historic experience? wouldn't it be more like one review a month? That's 12 reviews in a year. Will we really do?
I mean, I guess.
But it's not just new construction, remember. We now have stormwater review for anything over 150 square feet of addition.
Would we do more than 12 reviews a year?
Yes,
Well,
yes, and
Yeah.
they
Would we
for
do 40
new
reviews a year?
for new construction, they're proposing they need to do 2 passes of it. Because they're gonna review the initial project, they're gonna submit comments, they're probably gonna get a revised edition, and it just takes more work. So if we have 6 tear downs a year, there's 12, there's 1 a month, at least. And then, yeah, I guess
But we also haven't, we have lots of building applications. I mean, how many do we have last year total of building applications? We probably had like 20.
I don't know off
If you
the top of my
include
head, but
petitions and all, right?
yeah.
We have at least 2 a month,
That's
not a
what I-
tear down, not tear downs, but we have.
But Matt, I had a question about the estimate, $12.50 per review. Is this a fixed fee or is this an estimate based on the number of hours they expect to spend? Because I would hope that the review of a 200 square foot patio and the
Right,
need to put in a rain barrel or something is going to cost a lot less and take less time than a full house.
yeah.
So is this just sort of an average estimate or is it a fixed fee we're paying them for everything they review?
We're paying a fixed fee right now.
So you're paying a fixed fee of 1,200 for that Bayland group?
Yeah,
And then, but then would that include like the return? So like if I'm a builder and bring you that initial thing and you tell me that I need to go work on this and then they come back? That's included in there? They're not gonna charge you another 1,200 for that, right?
if they need to amend their plan, then yeah, they'll have to do a new review.
Oh, interesting.
I highlight this because this line item, remember, the frame here is tax RDF. So it implicates multiple years. And this line item totals up to 250K. Pretty sizable.
I mean, my own feeling is that it's an estimate at the moment because we haven't been through a year. We actually don't know how much it's going to cost. So let it be the 45,000 just now, and then we'll get a much better figure going forward for the future years. Right now, this is just keeping something in there saying there will be a cost over the 5 years.
Okay, if we do that, then my strong recommendation is we don't put any amounts in the subsequent years for this plan right now, until we have a sense.
What's the difference? We do it, but it doesn't.
Right, that's gonna really affect your reserve levels and artificially increase them, right? You'll contribute
And-
less to reserves because of the way we're calculating.
Mike, and I also thought from your initial presentation that you lowered some of your personnel cost estimates because we're gonna have Bayland doing these reviews instead of our town engineer.
Well, yeah, so.
And he's expensive.
Right, so one is that we have a stormwater code that needs to be reviewed, so we're gonna pay for it one way or the other. It may not be this fee structure, it may not be this company, but I think that it would artificially raise our rainy day funds and not be indicative of the cost that it actually is to administer this new code. You know, 3 was kind of conservative, so I you know, if we said 2, maybe that sets us into a better place. The idea was that we would use Bayland, kind of get us through this fiscal year, and then we would have an opportunity to evaluate, does this work? Is this the kind of setup we want? And then we go out to bid and get, you know, multiple companies that would submit proposals for us, hopefully. You know, that would
That
be
would
$2,500 a month, you know, that lowers it to 30,000. You know, that makes a significant increase, and that's not. And maybe that's reasonable to say, we have 6 tear downs a year, you know, that's That's paying for one a month essentially. And then we budget for one extra one every month. And that seems somewhat reasonable. Some months we might have 2 teardowns, some months we might have nothing. And then we're still talking about, that cuts 15,000 times 5, that's $75,000 off of our 5-year fiscal plan.
But the other thing that going back to the whole fees is that, that is maybe something that we should look at in terms of a stormwater fee for permits. So
I agree
that we
with you,
can
Shannon. I agree.
help, like, alleviate some of those costs, because that does get pricey.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think we should, so I'm Matt, in terms of your proposal, that works for me. I don't know for the rest of the group. But I think we need to be really thoughtful here, and I'm very nervous
see-
about line items that add up.
See, that's an example of why it would be appropriate, since that's a new fee and it's going to be significant contribution to your budget for the next year. That's something that you might want to fast track to initiate by the time the budget's passed.
I don't think we have the bandwidth for that, Jeffrey. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We all volunteers. I think that's a
You did.
big
No,
that's a
you
big
have-
deal
No,
to sort
it's-
out.
No, it's not. We can put it in the work session next month.
All right.
But it can be, it doesn't have to be done at the same time. It can be done, soon thereafter.
Yes, fair enough.
It's not going to be as big a bandwidth as you think.
Okay. You
These
told
are
me
all
it
good
wouldn't be
que-
such a big bandwidth to be on
These
the
are all good
council.
These are all good questions. This is why these questions and whatever everybody else has is the reason we have these sessions. Because I can tell you, most council members in all these little towns around us, they don't know as much as you do about their budgets, and it shows.
I'm going to keep going down, and I'm doing
So
this
important.
part to
know
inspire
too
my
much.
colleagues to make their own suggestions.
It's good.
Right, sorry, Kabir, before we continue on.
Go ahead.
This, are we keeping it at an estimate of 3 reviews per month, or are we reducing it to 2 reviews per month? I'm okay with reducing it to 2 reviews per month. And it doesn't give us as much cushion, but
If we have to increase it as time goes on, do we go into a rainy day fund? Is that what we do? Do we go into a reserve? I don't know.
Unencumbered
We-
I think we should just
charge
put it on
fees.
that, like, it's a $500 fee or a $600 fee for people from this point on. And then.
And
we
as
can
John
have another-
says, we can charge fees and we can do all of this, and people will still want to live here. I'm going to hold you to that, John.
Yeah.
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 I don't think there are 6 teardowns a year, just from what I've observed.
Agreed.
There have, some years have been more. I think almost everything's been torn down by now.
No, I don't.
No,
know.
not
Oh, I-
so.
Come
There's
to
not a
my-
lot.
You have not been on my block.
There's not a lot.
But-
You're
but
right.
Matt, bottom line, you need to revisit these assumptions, I think.
Okay.
But moving ahead, I would vote to reduce this to 2 per month. More to perhaps make the full 5-year plan a bit more realistic at this point in time, and we will gain more insights this coming year.
I agree.
And it might not be sufficient, and then we'll say yes, but for planning purposes.
Sorry to jump around, but the next item, I agree with that.
Okay.
The next item is 67105-4. The solar panel, we already covered that. That was the 68K at the pool that I'm
So,
recommending we move.
where are
to.
we?
That's at the, that's under
So
capital.
sorry to jump around,
Under the
sorry.
capital expenses, so
I'm
probably.
keeping the best.
What was the
last.
number?
What was the number?
67105-4,
Oh,
solar
yeah.
panel installation. That number 68, as I was saying.
Oh,
That's on his new budget
Oh,
that
so
he didn't
sorry.
print out.
It's
Yeah,
not here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I probably couldn't find it anyway.
That's why I couldn't find it. That makes
Yeah.
me feel better.
You can see it on the screen. It's the 68,000 amount there. I'm suggesting we move that to the special capital fund line because as we discussed earlier, and I think I heard a number of you agree with that, the likelihood of us doing this next year is challenged given the major construction. So although since we have specific estimates, we put it in the special capital fund and then we revisit it the next budget cycle.
I don't agree with that.
No, I think it's straightforward enough to do and will not be a direct conflict with any of the
Okay, okay,
pool work.
Having
So I
put up
would
solar
keep it.
panels myself, I.
okay.
do it.
No, I tend to, having done a major,
Yeah,
been
I-
involved in actually multiple major constructions, things always go sideways,
Yes.
but I trust you.
This is not a big deal.
I just think, it sounds like there's a conflict, pool and pool house, but physically they're separate, and the electrical wiring in the pool house has little connection to the pumping, piping systems.
I tell you what, if you could figure out how to put them on the deck, you could probably power this whole town. It's so hot. in that-
Right.
That's a good
There
thought.
are ground-based solar panels, they're basically on a pole and they swing around with the sun to catch the
Yeah.
sun. But it takes up space at the pool and you don't want kids near them, that's the problem.
They're not a shade tent.
They'll get burned.
Yeah, I was just being conservative. I agree that they're separate. I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm less worried about this installation. I'm more worried about the major work. And that it will have this sprawling impact. And it will be for many months. And so that's what's on my mind, that realistically we may not get there, but I really hope I'm wrong.
I leave it in.
How long do you think it'll take to install the panels? I mean, if it's just a week,
I had them installed in a day, it
Yeah.
does not take long.
Yeah, I think Kabir, is your point that this major renovation at the pool should be
Yes.
the priority and like
Yes,
project management?
not the installation of
Town
solar,
manager?
yeah.
And I think the
I
issue is that when you start to proliferate a lot more projects, then you lose track of sort of the big one that absolutely needs to get done. I think that's the point you're trying to make.
Yes, 100%. And
Well, let me bring
I'm
up-
confident we will do solar very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm not clear on the big one, which is a big deal. It's a big deal.
I just
It
think
will
we can
take
do
up all our
both.
bandwidth.
Let me bring up another point, which is that we don't know what our FY '24 budget is going to be. We don't know whether it's going to be a lot or a little. This is a project that could be deferred to '25 if it needs to be deferred to '25. So by all means, approve it in '24, but review it in '24 to see if we have the money.
Right, money, but Kabir's point that I'm hearing at least is it's not just the money, or it's not so much the money as it is project focus.
Project management, project focus. We know we have one amazing stellar person that drives the bus here. We will hire someone else, but this is a big deal. And it's
I don't know why we
very
don't-
visible.
Why don't we
Very
ask him? Matt,
Right.
what do you think?
Yeah.
You're the bus driver here.
Well, I mean,
Not to put you on the spot.
Just know there will be riots in the streets if the pool cannot open.
I was gonna say, I mean, and especially open before fiscal year '24 ends. I mean, that would be, to not have the pool open by July 1st would be,
Yes.
No, we missed swim season.
Oh, yeah, the swim season starts in May.
right,
It's a
well, that's
tight
why,
turnaround with winter, very tight turnaround, and it's a big undertaking. And I've worked with American Pool, great guys, but time is a flexible dimension for them.
let me ask one thing.
Yes, they may be parts
Do
of
they
the
work
legal
on the
marijuana.
weekends? Because if the
No, we don't know.
installer, if the
You know,
construction people don't work on the weekends, then certainly we could have the solar panels installed over 1 or 2 weekends and it wouldn't interfere over.
I think we've beaten this. It's Matt.
Yes,
you-
we've beaten this to
Yeah,
death.
you look,
It's-
you
and
think,
it's
please
not
consider
necessarily
it.
be American
This
Pools.
one's roasted, let's move on.
By the way, it's not necessarily gonna be American Pools, because we're bidding at the contract.
Seven Locks just redid their pool. They're in the process of it
Yeah.
right now. So it might be a good person to reach out to there to see like who they're using, how it's going. It's a big
Well, Little
deal.
So-
Falls just
so-
redid theirs.
So let me just throw something out regarding, I know it's very important for that pool to be open on time. So the contract needs to be structured so that there are severe penalties if it's not finished on time. And I'm sure that our adept town manager will make sure we get a contract that works best for our town.
Great. I had a question about contingency, but I can follow up separately with Matt on that. So the last item I have was my favorite item I bring up every year. Jeffrey already knows what it's going to be, which is the town journal.
Careful, careful.
I'm struggling with, as I have over the last year or two, again, I'm looking at this as one of 3-4 items when in total can make a big difference over the 5-year horizon. And so, I can imagine one more year of actually printing and spending on postage and delivering, but I just think from so many dimensions, environmental alone, this doesn't seem sensible to me to continue. And as Jeffrey and I have discussed, I think this is an amazing historical endeavor. We must continue it. We publish it in PDF. It is shared with the whole town. I think, the graphic designer costs probably make sense. But maybe we need to scale back the printing and we don't mail it. We make it available at the town hall and the pool or any other public venue for people to pick up. So a limited set of copies, physical copies for people to pick up, and really lean into transitioning it into being all digital over time.
Your points are well taken, except that the communications committee has spent a lot of time asking all of these questions and trying to thoughtfully come up with the answers. And in the survey they took, it was loud and clear that people wanted to be able to also get this in print. Now, over the course of the next years, should we scale this back? Yeah, probably, but we're not ready. Our older population in this community is not ready not to get their journals, is not ready not to get them, okay? And I think you need to pick something else to scale back for now. Maybe next year, we can talk about it again. We'll bring it up to the communications committee. We'll look at it. We'll take a look at our numbers, but.
We got rid of plastic water bottles. I don't know if the whole town was ready for it. Sometimes we have to make.
You're assuming, you
Let me
said people
finish
can
one
get
thing.
them. You
One
say
thing.
people can get them at the pool. Maybe they don't go to the pool, Kabir.
Okay, then maybe we do an opt-in mailing,
No, we don't
and
mail
I
it to
just think
everybody.
it's
Linda,
not,
Get one in the mail.
Linda, how many people do we mail to?
yeah,
It's almost everybody.
No,
I don't know.
I don't get one.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
you get it, you don't look at it. Yeah,
No, we don't get it. We don't get it. You get it, you don't look at it?
$5,000 on postage. I
Wait.
just, please really think about this.
Wait, Kabir, you get it at your house? Should Linda take you off the list?
I get it in the house. I'm pretty sure.
You-
I mean, I will tell you, most of what comes in physical mail is junk in my house.
Well, maybe we can get street representatives to go and drop it off
But
at everyone's
ask
house
them if
and,
we can see.
you
It's
know, we
always
can have a block captain and they can go do it.
Or the new teen committee could do that. I'm
Yeah,
just saying that this.
We'll be working on the team
Good
committee.
luck.
Not-
in getting the
not-
On the team committee.
Good luck.
Kabir, all I can say was last year I was with you. I thought it should be electronic. Hey, you get it in color when it's electronic. The images are so much clearer when it's
Yes.
electronic. And then the survey happened and I realized the majority of people answering the survey wanted it in print. And
Yes.
furthermore, they weren't all old.
Yes,
So-
but I understand the attachment. Even Jeffrey and I have talked about it. I like the idea. It's kind of nice. But it's not environmentally friendly and it's just not, I mean, we are solar panels, electric trucks,
You're-
but we're gonna do
We're
postage
not
and.
ready. Kabir, this town is not ready to give it up. Let's talk about it next year, but I wouldn't do it now, and especially because you have to.
Why
pull
don't
in-
think you have the votes to take it out, Kabir?
Because we need the communications committee to come in
It's
and
good
talk
that you're
about this.
recommending.
So let's move on
I
from
think
this
it's our
year.
call. It's our call here.
Did anybody explore charging for it or giving
Yeah,
people
that's
the
what
right
I'm-
to opt out? Because I think the
Yes.
other thing was
People
that
have the right to
People
opt out.
do.
There are all their
Okay.
questions.
That's why I'm asking if Kabir wants to opt out.
This is a
You're
very
out.
civil debate, much better than the US House of Representatives. It's a low bar.
That's a pretty low bar.
But I think you don't have the votes. Councilor
Okay, that's fine. It's on the record. Okay, when
Right.
everyone realizes, comes to it next year, I will
Right.
remind you.
It's good that you bring, no, it's important to bring.
Here, I
things
agree
like-
with you.
I just want to know why you still get it at your house.
That's what
I don't know. I guess I haven't opted out.
No, you're good.
All right, can we move on?
Sorry, I just wanted to follow up that since I don't have any other specific items myself. Perhaps in the out years, we could indicate that we'd like to see the postage decrease. And then that becomes a driver for us to look at options. Maybe we ask people to send a note to us every year if they want to receive it in the mail. So we get it reconfirmed that they're, I mean, I still get mail from my father who died like 6 years ago and you know, it's
There's
just,
no way to turn it off.
right, no way to turn it off.
Right.
So I think.
Support that. I would
I think
support
It's a
some
great idea.
step in that
Ask
direction.
people to re-up, you know, ask people for a commitment. We send out a mailing and we say, hey, do you want it to those who get it?
Right.
We say, do you still want to receive it by mail? If not, there's another great way to get it. It's called the computer, you know.
I would delay the mailing until the new website is up, because it will be easier to access the journal. on the
Right,
new
good
website.
point.
So
Absolutely.
another piece of information you need to look at, what does the code now say about the journal? So we need to look at that too, because that might need to be revised when you make these changes.
Okay.
Because I can't remember what we did when we rewrote it. But there used to be a lot of specifics in there about the publishing and everything else.
It's almost 7 o'clock, folks.
I would just flag that there are a lot of increased printing costs from committee requests reflected in this budget. So if you're concerned about printing, there's a lot more printing going on starting next year.
Well, from the committee requests,
From the committee requests.
that wasn't included in, for example, that was something that I didn't include, for these environmental reasons. I know that this has been a
Oh, right. we talked about-
discussion
because of the new
topic, so-
website, too.
I opted not to include them in my recommendations, but they are included in the committee requests for you.
So my recommendation for 65-101 postage is that for fiscal years 25 through 28, you just have each year would be half of what you show. And that just, obviously, we will revisit when we get to fiscal year 25, but it sets a goal and a reminder for us to start trimming it down.
So that I'm sorry, just so I have the right notes, that it's just half of the number that's on here, or each successive year is halved to 0?
Just, let's keep it simple, just half of the number that's there.
Okay.
All right, that was the big stuff for me. I just want the budget committee to know I tried. John and Ann, over to the other council members.
I have some questions. I
Go for it.
and I just, hopefully quickly you can answer these questions. Our newcomers party costs us $3,200 a party?
Yeah, because they had the ice cream, and they did the ice cream scoopers, which they started during
I
COVID.
mean,
And
somebody scoops, we hire people to scoop.
we hire people to scoop ice cream. We have, I think, did they do, was it face painting or balloon animals? Both of those, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Then,
You may want to check that, Matt. I think they came under that last year from an emails I saw. Just double check that.
What number are you?
I'm on it's 135 is the newcomers on page.
But by a grand maybe,
Page one.
you know.
Okay, so that was one question on the same line here. Our flu clinic costs us $1,000. Do we pay for the flu vaccines?
No.
Yes.
for the nurses, the
Nurses, okay. And,
that's another, so those two things you're talking about are part of the value of your.
okay, I'm just trying to,
It's like a service.
$3,200 for a party. I could do that party for you in less than
Well,
half.
you can propose cutting that.
But you're gonna be delivering all the
You-
journals.
You can
But I'm
propose,
done delivering the journals.
Councilmember Heller,
I'm
you
gonna
can
be
propose
stupid.
cutting that, and then the committee will be told what the budget is.
I'm gonna give
I'm
the
with Debbie. I'm with Debbie. It might be worth Matt to just double check the numbers on that.
You
one.
have, you
It's like
have,
so
you
much
have the
money.
power, you have the power, if you think that's too much,
The teen committee is gonna scoop.
if you think it's too much, you can change it.
Okay, I'm working on the teens, all right. Okay, and our non-generian was what did we do for $650?
There's ice cream.
Ice cream, okay.
But no.
But again,
scoopers.
I don't know, that's a question
Volunteer
about,
scoopers.
why does that cost that much?
Well, I brought it back to 650, which is what it has historically been. I think we only spent $380 this year.
Oh, good, okay. Then, $3,500 for Somerset Sundays, what's that?
That's movies, theatrical.
Oh, okay, that's, I see what that, that's more our entertainment. All right, I'm done. It's one more, sorry, keep going down. $8,850 for cartons of water.
Okay, that's misleading why it's in there. That's what I was trying to show there is that the overall cost for social events is increased
Okay,
in part due to that. It's
Okay.
not entirely that, but that it was just something to keep in mind for some of them, such as 4th of July, we're bumping up. The non-engineering party bumping back up.
okay,
I
no,
will say there, it could be aluminum cans of water, sparkling water, there are infinite varieties available now. And you can compare the costs of them, cans are, aluminum is infinitely recyclable, so as long as we've got recycling, we can use cans.
I would just go with whatever cheapest. I think people should bring their own.
Well, they can.
Yeah. Okay, those are my questions. But they were good questions, by the way.
They're good questions. Every question is good.
They're those stupid people.
I guess I'm like the teacher.
The newcomers
I'm the
parties.
professor, yeah.
I'm working on that one.
Steve, if there aren't any other specific things, I think we have probably concluded or.
No, there are, I mean, I want to check on the stormwater mitigation, of course, which is 68,104 in the capital budget. And I thought Bayview's estimate for the work full project is 150,000, not 100,000. Is that right?
Sorry, what number? I think it's
What page
68,104.
It's page 13, line 68,104. 311 is the Excel spreadsheet number.
13, I think.
Yeah, so what we discussed at the last meeting was, yes, the numbers that I originally put in were based off of an estimate from Bayland where they said it could cost upwards of $150. Excuse me, $150,000. And so the number for FY24 is half of that 75 paid for by the town and 25,000 for a new study. What the council had discussed was not necessarily being comfortable with the assumption that the town would only cover half of it. But at that time, we said, we'll leave the number as is for now, if we wanted to discuss further. Or discuss it at the time that the proposal comes in.
Okay, well, I won't be at the April meeting because I'll be in New Zealand, but this big project will not work if we expect residents to pay half of it. And so we should show the full costs in the budget. That's it. Steve, I think you feel the same way, right?
I mean, from my perspective, even though it may seem like particular stormwater mitigation measures are only a benefit to select household, I think it's a benefit to the entire town, for the town to be addressing stormwater. I think it could also be argued that those individual homeowners are in the situation they're in because the town council failed to apply the building code properly decades ago when they were looking at, adverse impact of construction. They weren't thinking about stormwater. They should. So now these homeowners are being confronted by houses that are too large right next to them that don't have stormwater mitigation in place. I just think it's the right thing for us to do. The budget impact, I'm not so sure. So I'm not, maybe 100,000 for this year 24 is still good for us.
Well, but the Bayland is estimating that it's going to be at least 150,000.
It's a very rough estimate. It's a very rough estimate. In reality, it is not at the same level as the other estimates we have. And if we follow that standard that the budget committee has said, we will put nothing in. But we didn't want it to be zero, you know.
Yeah, I had sent an email to Chris to try to get a number that made sense, and because I just said, I have no ideas, are we talking $2,000, $200,000? And he said it's tough because it really depends on the type and number of improvements. In addition to green infrastructure, we're anticipating some storm drain improvements with structures and additional piping, which can get pricey. So to be on the conservative side, I would budget $150,000.
And Matt, have you executed this contract, given the conditions we set in the last council meeting?
No, not yet.
So we have yet to meet those conditions.
Yes.
Okay, and just, could you remind everyone what those conditions were? I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
So it was that we needed to get permission to enter the properties that are affected. We needed sign off from, I think it was 80% of the affected households. And
But it's also being reviewed by the town attorney, right?
He's already reviewed.
You know, with these new,
So it's
I know, that's
possible we may not
that's a
even
good question.
execute. Yeah, I would be, you know, once we have concrete numbers, we should come back. But we don't have concrete numbers, and frankly, with the budget committee standard, this would be a zero. Because we don't have still a clear plan. But I don't think that's politically tenable.
Or
So-
here, just to jump in, it wouldn't be zero from our standpoint. It would be if you don't have a solid number, but you want to put money in a special capital fund designated for stormwater mitigation pending a master plan. The only other thing that the budget committee would say is that if this is one of N number of projects and you're setting policy basically by saying the town is going to cover 100% of it, it would be prudent, we would argue, to understand that universe of costs before proceeding. So in other words, I think, Robin, you had said there were like 7 or 8 priority,
5 to 7.
5 to 7. And so, you know, if it's gonna be 5 to 7 at 150,000 a pop, I would just,
What the stormwater committee estimated for the total was $1.1 million. Now, that
We don't have that money.
that is spread over
will have
multiple
time.
years. So it's not money in 1 year. So that's it. But as I said, some of the projects are more expensive than others because they're bigger. So tackling the downhill Dorset slope is a very big project because there's a long hill there. And it will be more expensive than the one that we're working on now for that reason. But some of the others, I don't know quite how expensive Little Cumberland will be because it involves probably the county doing some work and they won't pay for it. I mean, they'll pay for it if they do it. We've got to negotiate with the county on that.
I would be in favor of Anne's proposal. I think that's why we've updated these processes. I think, you know, maybe we put it in the special capital fund. Looks like we will end up spending more. So we will have to come back and relook at all of this in the course of the fiscal
I mean,
year.
I think that we really have to, I think it's so early to tell. I mean, I know that that's not, you know, where we want to put the money and helps us for the budget, but I think we really need these people to kind of come in and look at what's going on and then see the scope, because I also think that you may or may not have residents that want to contribute to it. And, you know, I mean, I just don't think we really know yet because we haven't embarked on any of it. I think it's an important thing for us to look at. And I think the stormwater management did a great job in terms of, you know, their analysis and, you know, we're off to a great start, but we just don't have anything else on that back end yet. And I think until we see what they come back with and numbers and figures and how it would work, we just don't know.
I agree with you.
But for planning purposes, I I guess I'm,
But for planning
Yeah, that's
purposes,
right.
if we put it in there and we don't spend it, we still, I mean, it's not like we don't have to spend it, we can move it then, you know?
right, well, that's why it makes sense to me to have money in the special capital
Well, I
fund.
mean, we put it in the special capital project. I mean, the point, what I'm trying to cross is that it will work if the town contributes 100% of the costs. It is not going to work if we expect the residents to pay half of it or even close to half.
But I don't think that we can know that yet. I mean, I think that it would be, I mean, I think maybe we should budget for it like that way, but, you know, I think it would be then, I don't know what is gonna be determined about Essex and how much it's gonna be and what that means, but, you know, and who contributes and who doesn't, but I just don't think we know that people are unwilling to contribute at this point or willing to.
I think this is really experimental. It's innovative, it's experimental, it's uncharted. We just don't know.
So what do we do? Do
We
go
have
to
not
someone-
executed. I think the figures are a good indicator of direction as Matt has proposed. I think Anne's additional suggestion seems sensible to me to put it in the special capital fund. No one is saying, you know, we won't do this, we don't want to do this, but there's some real questions. And if we can get those answered, which I'm confident we will get answered over the course of next year, we may end up realizing we need more money, as you intimated.
Yeah, I think that it'll be really interesting to kind of run through this first analysis of it and see, you know, what it all entails.
And this might also be something that this number that you put in a number now and then you revisit it when you vote on it.
Right, like if
So you
it's
have a couple- you have
astronomical,
time.
like, you know, maybe we're not gonna do
You might
it,
not-
you know, I
you
mean,
might
there's
not.
just, I don't, you know, it's just so hard to say right now. With that, in my opinion.
Right, but the way it is right now, I'm concerned that just showing $175,000 in the stormwater mitigation line does not capture the recommendation of the environment of the stormwater committee and the desires of many town residents to tackle this issue.
Well,
So maybe we just put $100,000 a year. This year's 24 through 28 in the special capital.
Yeah, but we are,
And then we
I'm
have-
almost, I mean, we're pretty certain that's not going to be enough for the first project already. So we should do more than that, is what I'm saying.
I just want to remind you, Steve, that would contradict what did you call it? Your vision? For not raising taxes? I
It's
think
just-
it
it's a
would
vision.
directly contradict that.
yeah, that contradicts it. Steve. Very sorry.
I have.
None of this is for the
Other places
ARPA
we can
funds,
cut
right?
back.
Okay,
Like,
I want to
I
say
have a
something.
place. They are.
I want to
ARPA
say
funds?
something
Don't
related
we
to
have to
this.
spend them by a
Because I
certain
just
amount?
had an aha moment
The money can't-
when Steve gave an explanation as to why we are spending all this money on the stormwater project. It's sort of like reparations, because it's correcting government decisions that were not made because there wasn't policy or were made incorrectly. So that is the best explanation I've heard as to why we are doing this.
But it's also an unsubstantiated explanation, with all due respect. I would be very comfortable. This
Why
is
is
a
it
recorded
ups- why is
session.
why is it
Because we
ups-
don't know. We don't have any data that suggests that.
Yeah.
We have no
Then-
data that
Did
suggests that.
Shannon-
And we
Which
shouldn't
one did he
be
get?
saying that. We shouldn't be, I don't, Ron is in the room.
We-
I don't even know
No,
whether
we do
he's
have, we
saying
do, we don't have data explaining that.
Yes.
We do have data explaining that.
There used to be rivers in the town that they're gone now, but the water still flows.
There, when a lot of those building applications were approved, they were approved because there weren't policies in place that we have now, and also because the earlier decision makers weren't willing to address it.
But we have
That's
also
what you were
been saying,
saying.
we also been saying that we are facing 100-year, 1,000-year rains.
Well, that's another
Right,
reason
I'm
too.
just saying, what is the driver, right? I think it's a little uncomfortable for me to make that claim.
But
because-
you don't have to
because-
make it. I'm
Yeah,
just-
but
you know,
but you're implicating the whole council. I'm uncomfortable with that notion that
Well, but-
how this is a reparation. That's a little,
Well, we can, all-
Agreed.
well, that's what I'm saying, but you can say whatever, you know, you have the right to say what you want. But I think that's a great explanation.
I think you can certainly think of part of it as reparations because our stormwater code was not as strong back then as
Yeah.
it is now. That is clear.
Yeah.
But the other
it-
point you're making is
clear?
correct. We are getting more rain now than when those
Yeah.
houses were built, and that's causing more flooding.
Is our
That is also
stormwater,
true.
we don't even know if our stormwater code is stronger. A number of us have brought this up. We don't know. We've started it.
Right.
We've just implemented, we just don't have it. If it's stronger, we just don't have enough data. This is a fundamental thing. Opinions are not data.
Right.
So from
Right,
a
but everybody's entitled to their opinion on why this was done.
Right, but
Same
this is
side
just-
effect.
Yes.
This
From a
interpretation,
budget-
not
Who was that?
opinion.
Who was that?
And
Jeffrey,
from a
who
budgeting perspective, the way it's set up now is to say, with the focus on FY '24, we're going to implement the plan that we anticipate coming in this year. And then we anticipate doing another study and continuing it. So that's what this budget is showing. And then I would also just note that when we're talking about stormwater and money that is earmarked for stormwater, we are paying, $30,000 a year in stormwater review too. So it's not as if the money's completely taken away from stormwater. It's just manifested itself in different ways.
One more
And
point here,
the
though.
stop.
There are two
And stop.
sides to stormwater. One is the new building code and the additions going in. The other side is for the properties already here that have flooding problems. Residents have spent millions in total on flooding problems with very little success, frankly. And part of the reason, in fact, most of the reason why there's very little success is because the flooding is not coming from their own property. It is coming from other properties to them. That is the challenge.
And rain, you said rain, right?
Well, we're getting more rain now
Right.
than previous.
Well,
And can I
I
just
want-
say that if I were a
Yeah.
resident who spent millions of dollars on my home and then found out the town was spending all this money to fix other people's problems, I might say, well, am I gonna get reimbursed for the investment I've made? So that's the only reason that I say that understanding the universe and thinking about the policy of how the money is gonna be used and given to residents, I think is really, really important. And I think you can use this first project as a pilot of all of the ideas and not make it the policy. If you know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
It's not being given to residents, it's being given to the firm who puts the,
Totally
Fine,
understand.
yeah,
I totally-
alright.
For the purposes of shared interests of stormwater mitigation, I completely understand. I'm just saying that for people who will have tried to solve their problem, why wouldn't I come to the town and say, I should be reimbursed for this because I've contributed to stormwater mitigation and you've paid for all of this other stuff for all these other properties, so please reimburse me for mine.
Well, if somebody does, they'll have to deal with it.
I would be first in line. But the point is that the residents who are helped will be very glad of the help. And I doubt that they're really going to ask for further money back from the town.
We are not disagreeing
It's a
with your
different-
intent. We're just saying for this budget. Yeah, we need to focus on the budget. I think we have a couple of proposals here. One, we keep it as is because of uncertainty. Two, we move it to the special capital fund line, which is what I would recommend because of all the uncertainty. I think there was another proposal, if I'm not clear.
Right.
We have to
I'm
increase it.
quite happy to move it to the special capital fund as long as the budget reflects the total estimated cost.
We don't know the total estimated costs.
We've been told by a contractor that it's going to be at least 150,000. That's what we usually.
That's a
use
very
when
rough
we're budgeting.
estimate. That's a very rough estimate.
Yes,
It
many
does not-
of them are very
But like,
rough.
I don't even know
Doesn't
what they're gonna
mean-
do yet. Like, I
Yeah.
think it'd be very interesting to hear and see like what they're gonna do and how that will benefit not just the residents of those immediate houses, but how it
We're
benefits the
going to, if we
whole
want to put
area.
100,000 in and it's more than that, and it looks like it's going to be more than that, then we're gonna have to come back. to
Robin,
you.
we don't.
I know,
know.
but what are they gonna do? Are they gonna change, like, what's the 150 gonna go to?
I mean, you can read again what he wrote. It is for certain greenscaping on the property, which is not so expensive, but also underground storm drain work, which is where the expenses go up. And
So
that's-
so I mean, and that'll be, I think that will be interesting to look at, like when we have the full proposal. He hasn't done the full proposal, right?
No, yeah.
So, I mean, we gotta see what it means and like, you know.
Yes, we do.
I mean, because
But-
planting some, native plants that have rainwater is not that expensive.
It isn't, and that's what he says in his note, but what's expensive is the underground work on the storm drain. That's where the costs run up.
Yeah, right, and so we're gonna have to see where he's gonna pipe it down from and like how that's gonna happen. I mean, maybe we look at gravel beds and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but until he kind of shows us what this plan looks like, I don't think that we can really, I mean, yeah, I understand that there's a lot of money, it's expensive.
So we should budget appropriate dollars for it then, right?
Yeah, but I think we should look at this as a pilot.
Yeah, it is. It's the first one. It is. the
And
pilot.
after the pilot, we look at the full cost estimate and then decide. That's all we're saying. We cannot just put numbers in. That's not what we want to
I
do.
will say that from a budget committee perspective, I agree with Robin to put the full amount that best that you know in the special capital fund, because you haven't designated that for stormwater. You have a plan to designate that for stormwater, but it forces the council to review a specific plan and then allocate it to stormwater when you have a specific plan. But I think you're better to be conservative and fully budget rather than under budget.
Okay, so you're proposing 100K in the special capital fund.
150K in the special.
So much for Steve's vision. All right, sounds good.
I just have one quick little thing on maintenance, number 221 on page 10.
Mhm.
We're putting $3,500 for extra mulch. I just wonder if we're not kicking the can down the road here. We should make a path, a real path. And maybe not this coming year, but something to think about, because, you know, if we're gonna put $3,500 worth of mulch down every year, I'd rather.
Where is that?
The idea behind it was to establish a path here on Dorset and to initially use mulch as a a permeable surface, almost like the Marty Shaw path that
Right.
connects us to Friendship Heights. Use something like that, because right now it's just kind of a mud, it turns into a mud pit.
It does.
And so that's the problem and thinking, and this came from PNRC as well. I think they were trying to be thoughtful about not putting down hardscape and what are potential path
All right, that's for another time.
materials. Ron raised his hand. Hi, Ron.
Hi, am I allowed to speak, Mr. Mayor?
The president is running this meeting, not me.
Yes.
Mr. President, thank you. So just two quick comments. ARPA funds, as you know, have to be obligated by December 31, 2024. So what I'm recommending to my clients is that when you do the budget, you put asterisks on certain line items that you're going to deem funded through ARPA. Okay, Matt's already done it. All right, and secondly, to the extent that, you know, it might address Councilmember Kumar's questions, you did receive a substantial amount of ARPA funds, and one of the permissible purposes is stormwater infrastructure, because Treasury does recognize that improving stormwater infrastructure improves public health.
We are as Matt was saying, there are multiple lines that contribute to stormwater in the budget. Staff, the review process, and then the line that was there now that has now been updated.
The point is, that stormwater is a good one to put an asterisk on because it is ARPA eligible.
It's already in the ARPA report. I don't know if you
Well,
can
you know,
flash that again.
frankly, because you've elected the standard allowance, you can use the ARPA funds for any government service. But
Exactly,
I'm just saying
exactly.
from a-
But we are, from a reporting purpose, Ron, we have Matt has a tab that corresponds to the Treasury guidance. So
Super.
while we
All
have
right.
the flexibility, we are accounting for it, and it's in the tab.
Thank you.
Okay, so does that wrap up our discussion of the budget for this evening?
So I will, I'll work and send our notes and kind of minutes, just to make sure that your feedback is reflected so that I am updating it in accordance with what you all are recommending. And
And I had some calculation feedback for you.
I think Ann had a few things that maybe just needed another eye just to make sure that
Not
they lined
substantive,
up.
just
Well, you're
calculation.
gonna come to
One
me.
other thing quickly is I haven't looked at what you've done with the PNRC proposal for the nature playground. But part of the proposal is to use we have to seek council's permission and find out how we do it, but to use the bequest that the town received to aid the nature playground. That's the 25,000 request that we've got, to spend it that way. And so that probably needs some discussion at council at some point. It doesn't have to be today, but that's what they're saying is a good use of the money.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's give a big round of applause to Ann Dalton and John Zalia and Meredith
She's here.
Okay.
and thank you so much, and we will see you at the budget approval
Looking forward to it.
meeting.
I will try to zoom in from New Zealand. I'm not sure I'll be able to. And
Oh my gosh, I won't
From
feel
the
that
Shire,
time
right?
change.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks.
Ann. Thanks,
Tell me,
Ann.
I'll also interrupt your vacation.
Okay, so now we're moving into council work session. I'm gonna take, we just do like a 5-minute bio break and I'm gonna get some water. Just a little bit of water on that. Okay.
I have to stand up.
I think I printed off at least the agenda for everybody. Oh, wait.
So I take it we're not doing if I were mayor this year.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Question. I can't find, to save my life, the email you sent with the,
All the documents.
yeah, like I read it the other day, but
Okay.
now I can't get it back up so I can follow along.
I'll just send it to you right
Thank you,
now.
thank you. About that,
We can do it next year.
because I can't,
Did you never got stuck in the principal?
no, I actually wrote her a note and she's not answering.
No, it's a
me.
man.
Well,
Man,
no, there's an
he's
acting principal
He's
right now.
acting.
Oh, yeah,
It's Miss Houston or something.
Cynthia Houston is.
and they,
I was given another person.
Are they willing to do it? They don't want to do it.
Liaison for fourth grade.
Oh,
She
it's
never responded.
it's Kathy
Kathy's is it her
daughter, yeah.
Yeah, she never
Her
responded.
name
Best
is
for car, best for car.
Bess.
Yes, that's what it is.
So she never responded.
She never responded.
So-
That's true.
So I think it's. It's okay, we'll do it next year. But we need. So historically, we meet with the principal like 4 times a year because there's a lot of issues with the school and the town. And since when they had that interim principal, we never met with her. And then we didn't meet with the last principal for it.
So there's a new one starting in the fall,
Right.
and he's supposed to be
Oh, I thought
great.
you were starting.
Yeah, so he's,
He was named, but he hasn't started.
no,
Yeah, no,
And-
I got his bike, I saw.
Yeah. he's from like Green Acres or something. And people like are very happy. And so I think he would be a good place to start.
Yeah, and
When you got this, like.
so when we meet with the principal.
I mean, I don't think he started. I mean, he's not.
No, he hasn't. We still have.
Yeah.
to-
Not many.
we still have to go through
He's had the
school.
interim.
Yeah.
I wrote her an email yesterday to ask for a question. Still haven't heard back.
Right.
And you can fly out.
Hello.
Hi, guys, I don't want to interrupt it. Are we allowed to come in?
Sure.
We don't have public participation, you can watch. And you can observe.
Matt mentioned you wanted to come, right?
But what, is there an agenda item?
Is this, there are a couple that are related. But is this for the environmental sustainability?
Bit of beekeeping.
Okay,
But this isn't this is just a work session.
yes. Okay, so thank you for taking some time out to join us. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to have you speak in the work session, but it's good to have you here. And let's, do we have Kabir back?
Did he,
He's still logged in.
Okay.
He might have just stepped
Just
away
don't-
for
don't see
a
him.
moment.
Okay. So done budget discussion work session. You have a bunch of items I'd like to dig into in a focused way. So if there's anything we can,
is so Councilman Kumar still on?
He's still logged on, so he hasn't left. It just only shows people that have their camera turned on.
okay. What I'd like to do, let's just start with something that's, I think is absolutely non-controversial. I could be wrong. But the resolution denouncing anti-Semitism recommended by the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Is everyone happy with that going?
So the only thing about that is that there's also that resolution that was passed by the town of Chevy Chase,
Yeah.
which is different, which I think you circulated.
Yes, I
Right.
included that
And
as
so
well.
the only issue tonight is whether we're gonna put this on the agenda, and it can just go on everybody agrees, just go on the consent agenda.
Yes.
But so if anybody has any question, but everybody understand, so Matt sent you the town of Chevy Chase, under the leadership of the Vice Mayor, Joel Rubin, they produced a resolution that they want every municipality in Montgomery County to sign on to. And I think you all got a copy, right?
Yes.
So
But is that what our
that's
Equity
separate.
and Inclusion
So-
Committee is recommending?
Well, I don't think that had been circulated before their meeting.
No, it happened, actually.
Oh, had it?
It shows, I mean, they had been working on this resolution before.
Well, I know, but the point is that you can put both of them on there. Because one is for the town and the other is just, it's
Sign on
just
to
to
the other.
sign on.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is, Ron might speak to this, the major difference, I would say, in them is that the town of Chevy Chase, I have it pulled up for you, has an action plan that is attached to it that I don't believe that ours does.
There's a generic statement in ours, not quite an action plan. It says, all members of we should encourage all members of the community to reach out in support of colleagues, friends, and neighbors who may be hurting in the wake of acts of hate and violence, and affirms its continuing commitment to promoting harmonious relationships, blah, blah. So that's the action only there, right?
So Kabir, I'm not sure if you're caught up with us here. I just wanted to get us going, so I started off
All good,
partway through the agenda.
all good.
on an item that- Okay, good. So let's put both items on the consent agenda separate, so that if somebody has a question or disagreement on one versus the other, it can be pulled out for more discussion during the meeting. Okay, now we'll jump back to go in order. Statement of environmental sustainability recommended by the Environment Committee. Can you give us an intro on that, Matt? And we have guest speakers here in case we need to refer to subject matter experts.
Yeah, and Councilmember Barr might also be able to tee it up. But in essence, you recall that, I think it was just this month, the Equity and Inclusion Committee had a inclusivity statement, and there was some thought around adding an environmental component to it. And I think as the two committees kind of got in the weeds, they realized that it made more sense to separate the two out. And so the Environment Committee recommended basically that this statement be prominently posted on the town's website, and that we pass a resolution that affirms the town's sustainability goals.
Are there any questions or issues about putting that on the consent agenda?
I'm only going to bring up that the accomplishments are obviously something that's going to have to be updated over time as we move on. So it's like it's not a single statement that we leave, it's gonna have to be something that is modified over time.
Good point. Okay, next item is update on beekeeping proposals. And just as a reminder, folks, we were looking at 3 different proposals with a full range of levels of activity, professionalism, and cost.
Right.
Matt?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, I think in essence, you know, it would be anywhere from, we're looking at, you know, Ms. Harris has offered to volunteer for the town. So we would only be assuming the cost of supplies, so signage, the bees themselves. We could pay for the honey if we wanted to do that, the jars, things like that.
Right.
There was one professional option and one kind of semi-professional option. Both of which have their own insurance. So I think the other element is the insurance, which we found that the town could, if we appointed a volunteer, they could be added to the town's existing insurance policy. But you know, there is still some risk attached to that, however unlikely it might be. Legit has never had a client of theirs specifically do this, but it's really a question of you know, how much we want to pay. And then I think Councilmember Kumar mentioned, you know, there was some discussion among some environment committee members about whether the European honeybees are actually a net positive for the environment, and if we should do more to just promote local pollinators. So to throw another wrinkle into the debate, yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Yes.
I just wanted to make a correction to your statement. The town would not be paying for the bees. Elizabeth is going to be bringing that in at her expense. So or the equipment. So the only expense would be what's already been done was the creation of the apiary and maybe putting a couple more signs up. And then also if the town is interested in buying honey, then she's willing to take the honey. It might not be available for the first year while they're established in their hives, but it would happen in the subsequent year where you can sell the jars. It can be then distributed or sold to whoever. And then also just to respond to what you said about the Italian bees. I mean, the native population of bees is probably, Elizabeth could describe much better than I. Are, you know, most beekeepers are using Italian bees, and one of the things that, and they're very gentle bees, and there's a lot of success with the use of those bees, and there's a lot of beekeepers in Montgomery County. But one of the things that Elizabeth has just told me about is there what are now called robber bees, where if you have only one beehive or box, that sometimes foreign bees can come and basically take the honey away, and that will kill that box. So the only way to combat that is to have multiple boxes, and have a large, like 3. I mean, it's not a sure win, but the best way to combat that. So multiple boxes is what Elizabeth is hoping to install 3 or 4 or 5 boxes. Whereas just so that you know, the commercial keeper is only planning to bring 1 box. So I'm not even sure whether you're familiar with this phenomenon, but you know, Elizabeth is already part of a very large beekeeping association that shares knowledge on a regular basis.
Would she be able to install more than 1 box in the enclosure we've already built?
Yes, I mean, she's planning, it's designed for 6. That's that. Up to 6.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think we need to discuss a little bit. My thoughts, just to share. We've discussed and debated this for well over a year, and we've had forums and other activities. I'm looking forward to moving ahead. It's the reminder, this is a pilot, and which with whatever option we decide to go forward with, and hopefully we will decide to go forward with one of these three options. It is just a pilot, and we can decide to either go more or less professional, more or less costly in the future. And we can identify what the lessons learned are, what the issues are, before we take further actions in the future. I think my inclination, even though I find the two different professional or semi-professional proposals attractive, I like the idea of a neighbor who's a volunteer, who's really enthusiastic about it. And for a pilot for 1 year, we'll see how it goes. My biggest concern is Matt's time, the time of the town staff to oversee this. If we have a volunteer, is that somehow going to be more demanding on his time to oversee what's happening? I think that's what the pilot is for, just to find out. So those are my thoughts. Let's just go around. Oh, sorry. Yes,
Well,
Shannon.
so let's say that we do the pilot and the bees come in and, you know, I don't know, something happened, like, and we decide we don't want to do it anymore. Like, where did the bees go? Did someone come and take away the bees?
I'll take it away.
Okay.
No problem. I have two others.
Okay.
Don't worry.
They're not like left to like just roam them themselves.
No, there's such demand for,
Okay,
yeah, it's, even if I wasn't gonna move into one of my other locations, they're easy to sell.
okay,
They go with it.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
it's good to know.
Easy.
Good question.
And
Robin?
also, just to say, Elizabeth is also willing to do educational stuff with the town, whether it's the kids or the adults, to teach them.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually did participate in environment committee meeting last week and brought up the issue over the different proposals that we've received to get the environment committee's reactions. And they were very strongly in favor of Elizabeth's proposal, actually. The issues, though, still around that, and I think you being here, I really very much appreciate, were are we doing anything to support domestic bees, or are the honeybees in competition with our domestic bees? And secondly, can you do something educational for the town so they can feel more connected to the bees? Is the idea.
Yes, I definitely can. I'm happy to talk to you anytime, as long as I have a few days of notice, about existing bees. And I know more about honeybees than I know about native pollinators, but I do know that there are these, I know the setups that are easy to install, to encourage native pollinators by giving those spaces that would be a very easy thing to set up. I would suggest doing it not on the same site as the honeybees, but on another place in town. But I'd be happy to install those and figure out how they work. And I agree. I mean, I don't think honeybees basically came. What one argument that we could
I'm
make
sorry
is
to
that-
interrupt. I don't know who's talking, but I have to say I haven't been able to hear you well here.
Because the microphones are hanging over here.
I'm very sorry about that.
Here, we're gonna give her a microphone.
Does this work?
And I apologize. I think there was a man speaking earlier too, sitting there. I can't I can only see his leg. Oh, Bart. I only could see your legs and your hands waving. You were very convincing.
It's Elizabeth, hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
So what I was saying was that I agree that native pollinators deserve some attention as well. And I do think that honeybees have gotten a lot of attention in the past years, partly because a lot is coming from commercial beekeepers. With people, many of whom are trucking bees all over the country, which I don't think is a sustainable practice. I was saying that I'd be happy to install the equivalent of hives for native pollinators as well. This is something that's not readily available, and not that I don't know any details at this point, but I'm happy to figure out when, they're very straightforward. You install them, the pollinators come, and, you're providing a comfortable space for them to live, basically. And I would suggest installing those. I'd be happy to install those, but maybe not right beside the honeybees.
Thank you.
So you've heard questions from Shannon and Robin. Go around, Debbie.
My only concern with whomever we pick to run this project is the time sink for you. And Matt, I really almost, when we get down to really voting on this, I really would want to hear from you as to what makes sense. Because I think it's great project. I love the idea of a volunteer. But I'm just concerned about your time. So that's my concern. And I don't know if we're going to talk about that tonight or we're going to talk about this at the meeting.
Well, tonight you're gonna decide what you want to put on the agenda.
I
So I think-
assume we should put it on the agenda.
No, I mean,
No.
but you need to make a
What we want to do
recommendation.
is we want to have,
Because then you'd have the vendor.
we want to determine which is our preferred option,
Okay,
or at least the preferred option for voting yay or nay on. Because
Okay.
we'll ask that individual or that company to come to the council meeting to answer questions from us and to answer questions from town residents.
so in that case, Matt, it's really is if Elizabeth runs this project, is this a time sink on you? If we have one of the companies that you've identified, is one better than the other for you? What's best?
I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna be a huge time suck. I mean, I think to the council president's point earlier, it's designed as a pilot program, so hopefully I'll be able to better tell you in a year and say, we ended up doing X, Y, and Z for it, and is it a priority in that way? But I mean, generally for now, I don't think it's
Okay.
gonna take up a lot of time to administrate.
Well, in that case, I would bring in Elizabeth to do it.
Kabir, do you have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a few questions. I don't know, can you hear me, by the way?
Yes. we can
Loud
do
and
it.
clear.
So the first question I have is, I was CC'd into an email exchange in the environmental committee that suggested the whole idea is sort of questionable. And I didn't really follow it closely. And since Bart is here, he can help us understand that. It seemed to go beyond honeybees. It seemed to sort of suggest that if you, in this sort of broader climate crisis moment, well, future, not moment, we, might want to think about the kinds of interventions we want to make. And the apiary, there's new sort of thinking that if the choice is between apiary and sort of rehabilitating our natural resources, I didn't, again, read closely, but that was the intent it sounded like. Maybe we want to think about that. And so I'm wondering if you can help us understand that discussion. And then the related question is this proposal not a unanimous view of the environmental committee right now? And how should we as a council think about that, despite Steve's reminder that we've been talking about this for a while? So that's one set of questions I have. The second question I have is, why can't we put multiple, not maybe all three, but two of the proposals up for discussion at the council session? And then we can vote on the one we feel more strongly about. As in, I'm in support of having this as an agenda item. And then we can have sort of, because the benefit of a council meeting is you get, public commentary and others can come in. Not that it rarely happens, but there's a benefit of that. And we can put, two of the proposals, and I will lean to, look to Matt to kind of pick two of the three. Why can't we do that? And then the third is, I know, Elizabeth, I'm confident that you'll be able to do this, and I know you have in your backyard. But at the town level, I've remained concerned about an initiative like this, and because it's a different order of implication than one's own backyard. And we have to look at all dimensions of this, and not just cost. And so I think originally we were concerned about liability. Then we were concerned about costs. Now, as Debbie was highlighting, we're concerned about hidden costs of running something like this that we are not aware of. We have one town manager that does 80-90% of activities in town, and we have 3 big capital projects that we are pursuing, including one around stormwater. And I'm concerned about bandwidth there. And so my question to you is, could you give us a sense of what level of engagement you would need from Matt? How much sort of support and engagement and sort of partnership you would need from him to make this happen? And are there scenarios in which that it could be a burden on him unexpectedly? Those are my 3 set of questions.
Why don't you go forward to here and see, can you hear me? Here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So to answer, I hope that you remember all your comments, but there was a discussion. It was mostly Sarah Morris, David Caton's wife, that was talking about her bees and her concerns about, sustainable ideas. And I think actually Elizabeth has already answered that question about this balance between the native bees and also the honeybees. And I think that, Elizabeth is completely locked into this discussion. So she's always looking for new ideas about what's best to do, as she had already described. Oddly, I have to say that it was sort of a little surprising when I found out that Sarah was talking about how she thought that the Italian bees were not appropriate for the town, but she also admitted to me that she has Italian bees in her hives. So I didn't really quite understand why she was promoting something that she was actually also doing herself. I didn't understand that. But this is a whole community that's out here. We're not reinventing the wheel here. There's a lot of people and a lot of discussion about that. And it's also, as far as Elizabeth's requirements, what she needs, she's going to be completely autonomous. There's no need for Matt to intervene in any way, shape, or form. If she's going to be running the bees, she's not going to be calling Matt to bring him down there to help her lift up boxes, to move into a truck or something like that. It's like 100% Elizabeth. She will be bringing honey jars to the town if that's what the town wants, and Matt will put them in the corner there. So when a resident comes, he can sell it or give it away for free. But that's something that.
To follow up on that, Elizabeth, suppose you go on vacation or visit a sick relative, what do you do?
No problem. I've been doing this for years. The bees are fine on their own for up to a month at a time. They're fine. And also back to, this is some of the sustainability issues. Sorry, I forgot which point it was, but I just wanted to also emphasize that I did a certification in organic beekeeping. So the way that I keep my bees is keeping as natural as possible. I'm not trying to impose a new animal into an ecosystem. The reason that I am a beekeeper is because they've been part of our ecosystem for as long as we have been here. Anyway, I'm
And
just.
also you mentioned that it's not just your backyard that you oversee these, you have
Right.
other public spaces around.
Well, Rock Creek Park, yeah.
So it's not like this is not her first sojourn into municipal.
That's
space.
helpful. That's helpful. How many public facilities are you overseeing, Elizabeth?
No, it's not, well, it's not a public, it's another private backyard, but it's over in Rock Creek Park. But
I see.
I can't imagine anything that I would need to come to that for. I honestly can't. I've been doing that on my own for 15 years, so I don't know what I would need from that.
One quick follow-up there, Steve. Matt and I, there was a inebriated person on a bicycle by the apiaries the other day, throwing knives and the police were called. It's just an area because you kind of come upon the water there. And so, not to, who knows what will go wrong, right? But that just happened. So it's fresh on my mind. And I wondered, could this guy just kind of gone around and just messed around with the apiary if it existed, or, what do we do in those instances? What's your view on that? And what would that mean for us?
Well, if he climbed over the fences and into the apiary, he would be stung. I mean, he would be, before he even did that, he would be, if he was targeting the hives with knives or sticks or anything, he would be stung a lot.
And we wouldn't be liable for that, right? That's a question for Ron. We'll
That,
come back to that, yeah. And then Bart, just to clarify, a related piece is that email exchange just made me wonder, is this a fully recommended view of the committee? Or is that still debate open? I just wanted to put that formally in on the table.
We have unanimously agreed to do that. And we brought it up like multiple times for our meetings because this process has taken a long time. So this new thread was something that was started by Sarah Morris. And she was airing her views, and I think David was participating also. He is a member, but that was not a meeting that we were having. And we've already unanimously voted multiple times that we want this to go forward. So it's unfortunate that, it's not unfortunate, actually, it's part of the conversation. So I was very happy to field Sarah's questions, but I think that they were sufficiently addressed. And I think tonight, Elizabeth also spoke about her sensitivity towards using organic and also focusing on native species as well. So it's not like a black and white situation. And as I said before, Sarah admitted that she has Italian bees and 2 other different varieties of bees that she thinks, but she wasn't even really certain herself.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. Thank you both for making time to be here. Just that open question to Ron.
Right, so I want the liability question, Ron. There are 2 aspects of it, I think is, in your view, could the town be held liable for such an incident? And secondly, even if the town is held liable, would our insurance cover it?
Sure. So, having apiaries does present some risk, as Matt has noted. However, we do have insurance. Now, of course, in the litigious society we live in now, people will sue for anything. So that's why I say having the hives does present some risk of liability. But to be found liable, the town has to be negligent. And our insurance provider has provided guidance to us on how we can mitigate that risk with fencing and signs. And so if someone's intoxicated, ignores the signs, climbs over the fence, and is throwing knives at the hive, I very seriously doubt a court would find us negligent. That person has assumed the risk of their injuries.
And Ron,
And we have limited liability, even if we are liable under the Local Government Tort Claims Act, which limits liability.
that's helpful. There's a cap.
Yes,
Okay.
150,000.
Okay, that's good to know. And what if
And we have insurance cover.
on top of that? Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
What if, Matt left the gate open by mistake? He was rushing to something, it was just left open, someone got in. In that instance, they would have a stronger claim.
Potentially, but we still have signs, and
Okay.
hopefully a court would say someone ignoring the signs, walking into a fenced area where there are hives, understands that there's a risk of being stung. And you're not necessarily going to be stung if you walk around an apiary. I mean, Elizabeth knows more than me, but I've
Yes,
had them
yeah.
in my
No,
family.
I
Never gotten stung.
I know. My 10-year-old was reminding me of that the other day. I do know. So Steve, I'm in favor of putting it on the agenda, but I'd like 2 proposals on. One, the volunteer and the other potentially one of the firms. So we can debate that. Thanks, Ron.
So just so we can plan, thank you very much, Ron, to plan for the council meeting.
But it's that with, who's with three?
Right.
Remember,
So,
So if three people want that, that's fine.
Right, so-
And you want the other vendor there.
but I don't recall ever having two vendors come to a council meeting to give their point of view, and then the council votes on which of those two that we want.
That's
think-
correct, but you still can do it.
Yeah, we've only heard from one.
But it would, but to put it on the agenda, three of you have to decide. how you
So-
want it.
I am happy to put this on the agenda
I
with
agree.
just Elizabeth.
Me too. I think having more than one vendor is ridiculous. We have fleshed out the three possibilities. And I think we need to have one, and I'm happy to have Elizabeth.
Right, I agree with only Elizabeth. Elizabeth has answered my question satisfactorily. I do recommend that we ask her to also build domestic bee huts or whatever they are, protect, units for the domestic bees too.
Thank you. So that's what we're proceeding. And then, if we vote and we vote down on Elizabeth, then we can, and we still want to proceed, then we can next month invite somebody else.
Now, something else that Councilmember Kumar, I think, had implied is that this should be publicized, so there'd be public comment. And so, the deadline for the journal has passed, but if someone could write a quick article about it, it can be put in the journal. And I would recommend you do that. Would that be would that meet your request, Councilmember Kumar?
That would be a bare minimum, yes.
I'm sure Matt can write the article.
Quick thing.
Very fast.
No, he can write it, he can.
We can always put it in the Friday announcements.
No, it should be in the journal. I mean, we talked about earlier that he went to the journal. And that's the way we operate.
Yeah, it's
So
important, but we're past the deadline.
it doesn't matter, there's time. No, sure. Should be fine.
We have an end with the
Should be
editor
fine. I'm the publisher anyway.
and the public.
So anyway, Matt will write a brief article and to make sure that we
Okay,
get some public.
Kabir said, Elizabeth will be the only person going into the apiary. No one else is allowed to go into it. So Matt will never be under that door.
He won't leave the gate unlocked.
And yeah. He won't be-
Promise I'll
It's
be
only Elizabeth.
okay. Thank you, Bart. Thank you both very much.
Thanks for coming.
Great discussion. Let's move
Thank you
on.
both.
Update on solar panel proposal.
Sure, so this is just we elected to move forward with Celestial, and he came by and did a more thorough review of the town hall and the pool as a follow-up after kind of learning that the pool connected to the DC. Part of the reason why he did that and reevaluated it was in learning that by connecting to the DC line, we can make more money. So there's kind of two benefits to having solar panels. One is you save on your electrical costs, but also in Maryland as well as DC, there are incentives that they give to folks that put in solar panels as part of their broader vision for having more sustainable electrical providers. So I included I share the screen. I know we're running low on time. So the main point is I'd like to invite him to come to approve the updated contract for the town hall. We kind of had the discussion during the budget. We could follow up with him and ask about how best to sequence it and he can discuss further about, I think for the town hall, I will say that he also said we could put it on the garage here and that the garage actually faced south. So the garage could potentially be good, but we would need to replace the roof, and I just said it's not worth doing that at this point. So this is just to do the town hall that we'll consider. I've also included the pool if you want to follow up on that, but that would not be what we're approving at this time.
Okay. Good.
That's the total of the budget that we have.
Yeah, thank you. And so, and it's, I think it would be about 15 years or so of, we would total recoup the cost of over 15 years.
You'll get it much sooner.
Oh,
It was amazing how fast we recouped ours, because we're also part of the DC line.
okay.
We've
Yeah.
already recouped it.
Yeah, so like I said, there's the annual solar savings, and then there's the SREC income.
It was the SREX. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
You'll be able to reduce
Okay.
electricity costs in your 5-year budget.
Yes, right, yeah, exactly.
Budget amendment for the electric truck purchase.
So this was something that I think I briefly mentioned at our last budget work session. The idea here, we had talked about, I think for 2 years, we've talked about in our 5-year plan, once this truck dies, it could be time to do an electric vehicle. Well, the truck's dying, it's not dead yet. But there's a backlog on the electric truck, so it might take 12 months to get a truck, but occasionally we even, maybe 2 weeks ago, they called us and said, actually, we got one. It was all souped out, so it was a $100,000 truck, so it didn't make sense anyway. But if one does become available, the idea would be we have the flexibility to go ahead and buy it this year. It doesn't long-term affect our budget. We're spending the same amount of money over time. It just gives us flexibility. If a truck becomes available, we can make that purchase. And also to install a plug.
Right, and you can do that fast. You could respond rapidly instead of having to call a special.
Exactly, yes.
Should we put that on the consent agenda?
I don't think you can.
Okay.
Is it, Mr. Town Attorney, I don't think you can put a budget amendment on consent agenda, right?
If
It requires four.
if it's unanimous, you can, Mr. Mayor, but a budget amendment does require a supermajority.
Okay, so then if it doesn't pass unanimously, then we have to pull
Move
it
it.
off, then that part of it fails, but yeah. So if that's what you all want, we'll put it on the consent agenda.
What do you think, Amir?
What is the exact proposal?
The proposal would be to
Texting.
basically to
Texting.
move money from, this year, we didn't spend money on snow removal, so we can move it into a line to give us the flexibility to purchase the truck if it becomes available this fiscal year.
You don't.
That's essentially.
Move it into the electric truck line?
Exactly, and then if we do make it this year, then we'll zero it out for next year.
No problem. Works for me.
Great, thank you. So that brings us to Kenwood Attorney.
And I made an error, it's actually a traffic engineer, not an attorney, so I apologize for
All
that
right, I
mistake.
didn't even notice that.
I think it's,
And this is Councilor Heller's. item.
Okay, we have been approached by Kenwood to chip in for their traffic engineer, which I had the, I met him on Saturday. He's quite good. He's really sharp. He's down to earth, very knowledgeable. And, you know, yes,
But wasn't
Kenwood,
the proposal sent to everybody?
Yes, it's included.
So is there anything you want to add to it?
I just think it's something we should do. I think we should help out in this.
Okay, let's ask the town attorney. I'm not sure that it. So, Mr. Town Attorney, you know, this is a request to help pay for their lost Kenwood Association Citizens lawsuit. I'm not
No, it's
sure.
No,
No, it's not.
For the engineer.
It's for, as part of their lawsuit.
Actually, this guy's gonna come and testify next
What does
week.
it say in the thing?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me.
It's for their lawsuit,
it's, I
but
mean,
it's for.
To evaluate the current condition of Little Falls Parkway and provide alternatives to the existing condition.
But I think it's for their law. Anyway, Mr. Town Attorney, I'm not sure, is this an appropriate expenditure, of Somerset funds?
So generally speaking, Mr. Mayor, according to state law, public funds need to be spent for public purposes, and the law in question provides that expenditures need to benefit the town and its residents. So in order to contribute to this, the town council would need to find that this expenditure benefits a significant number of town residents and is not just for the benefit of the Kentwood Association.
Right, I don't think that's clear to me.
Okay. I'll pull it then. I'm not gonna.
No, but it was whatever, but the reason why I wanted you to put it on here so that the council would understand the request. And they could decide, it's up to the council to decide whether they want to put this on the agenda.
I believe that Kenwood is a wealthy, very wealthy community and has sufficient funds to pay the engineer out of their own money. And
They do,
given
they
that,
have $200,000 in their budget for the Kenwood Citizens Association.
I think they can find 15,000 from that.
Let me tell you why I brought it to us. Not because I felt sorry for them that they had to foot this bill or they couldn't afford it. I felt that we are part of the fight. And the
No,
Parks
speak for
Department.
yourself.
We're not, we
Yes, we are part of the
we
fight.
don't have a position on any.
It's
fight.
not about the fight, just, I mean, there is traffic data.
But it's not
We
good
don't
enough.
know, we don't know if it is good enough. No
Yes, we
one,
do.
no one
We
knows.
do. I
No one
do.
knows. That's
do
why
now.
we want, hold on.
We
Okay,
don't-
but I do know. All
You
right.
hear
That's
me,
your
you hear me,
opinion.
you'll be happy
Not
when
my
I finish.
opinion. I learned that. I learned that from the
But
two
that's your
traffic
opinion,
engineers I
but
met with.
But
Debbie,
that's your opinion.
Yes.
hear me out. I'm in support of this. And the reason I'm in support of this is because we don't know. We do need expert to help us understand. I think the traffic data is very rich, very sophisticated. You know, it would be good to validate it. Now, I have a suggestion. You guys are gonna blow your mind here. Just that, could we spend more and do a bit more of a comprehensive analysis of Dorset cut through traffic? I don't know if we have ever historically done that, Jeffrey, you might know.
Well,
And
we did
because
our
it is a,
survey.
it is about our town, there've been many.
But it
residents-
isn't, but it
Wait,
isn't.
hold on, I'm on Zoom, it's hard for me to,
Oh,
hold on.
sorry. Go ahead.
So, you know, my view is that there's been for many years, people have said that there are challenges with cut through in school, kids going to school in Dorset. People, you know, are parking their cars in the street, not in their driveways because they don't want others to park there. You know, there's all this stuff about Dorset. And so I'm wondering if we can get a handle on that as part of this analysis. So I'm in favor of
But
both
that is-
analyzing this data and getting a perspective on what is the real true flow over time in Dorset. So we can potentially use that data in policymaking.
But that isn't what this request is.
I'm saying I'm in agreement with this request, and I think we can spend a little bit more and do more.
Yeah, but
That's all
the-
I'm saying. You can disagree with me. I'm just
Wait,
saying that's
wait,
what
wait.
my view is.
So when former council member Tom Eldridge now lives there, he wrote to me in February and said, any chance Somerset is willing to contribute to help hire a traffic engineer? And I believe that is related to, I don't know what, I didn't read this letter, but I believe this is all related to getting information for the lawsuit they filed.
Well, no.
So what is, so this request that came in, who's, is it from the Peter Rizzo?
Uh-huh.
Is it from Peter Rizzo?
I think it is.
Yeah,
So, but to Councilmember Kumar's point, I don't know that this traffic engineer is going to do a study related to the impact on our town.
Right.
I think the impact is on Kenwood.
Is
Actually.
that true, Debbie?
Actually, what he spoke to on Saturday was the safety issues of Little Falls
Okay.
and basically, you know, the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing, how unsafe that is. And he's not looking at it from just a Kenwood perspective.
Okay.
Now, could we ask him to tack on and say, can you give us a clear cut through, opinion, or do a study Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay, so what I would suggest is, if you want to put it on the agenda, that you then invite the vendor, the contractor. Because I don't know how appropriate it is just to give money to a citizens
Right. I hear
association.
you.
It's like giving it away. We don't know what benefit, to the town attorney's point. How do we know what benefit there is to our residents? These are our residents' tax dollars. And also, Councilmember Kumar has a lot of very good questions about this. And maybe we should get our own traffic and, perhaps to answer his question, some years ago, we did our own, remember we did our own survey, Kathy Picard? We had people count, remember?
I was
Councilmember
counting, I
Vaughn?
was a counter.
Yes, so yes, perhaps, I wouldn't be opposed to spending money on some kind of engineer to study something that's important to us.
Let's
But
do
to
that.
just- But
Let's
to
do that.
just give money to this request. We
Fair
don't
enough.
have enough information. There's not enough information about what we're getting in return.
Debbie, is it possible to kind of use this as a basis to see if we could do something that would, clearly benefit our town?
Yes, I can pose these questions. I can try to figure this out. The idea was to get this information by March 30th, because that's when the planning board is having its hearing. And this particular engineer and another University of Maryland professor in traffic engineering are going to, they're going to testify before the planning board. And
But we
they're
wouldn't be
going-
voting on this. You wouldn't be voting this on April anyway.
That's right, so we're
Yeah.
really,
Let me ask the town attorney a question. So, Mr. Town Attorney, are you aware of the lawsuit that the Kenwood Citizens Association filed regarding the fact that a federal law was not followed when decisions were made about Little Falls Parkway?
I'm not aware of that lawsuit,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
well,
This scope of work does, one of the deliverables is presentation of a recommendation to the planning board. I don't believe the lawsuit was mentioned in this scope of work, but it could be related.
Well, I think we're suspicious.
How can the traffic study be done in time for the planning board review on the 30th?
well, that's right. If we were to hire this guy and do this piece of add-on work, I don't think it could be. It could be the time.
Makes sense. We obviously can't vote on it until April, which
Right,
is after the planning board review, so it doesn't really make sense for us to get involved in this one.
Okay.
Debbie, do you recommend we still pursue this even though it doesn't meet that deadline? But not pursue this particular.
Right, I hear you, and I hear
I-
everybody, I get it.
I think the traffic committee should weigh in. I think they've made some recommendation. Who's the liaison to the traffic?
No,
Isn't the traffic committee requested funds for, we get some surveys done? I mean, it's
Not this year, no. They
Transportation.
were, we
Traffic.
did get in follow-up conversations with Fair and Piers, who did the pool parking lot, and our sign inventory. They had offered, they said, we think that you could use a survey for, one of the things that they did was a survey to help us put together a parking plan. But the traffic committee wasn't interested in moving forward with it at this time.
well, I think the traffic committee would be interested in such a survey if this would be more timely, before March 30th. Sorry, that's my lord and master. Anyway,
Your dog?
Is your dog calling? That's what's up.
So I know we're.
it's my husband, he's.
I know we're over our time, but so do three of you want to put this on the agenda for April?
I'm kind of waffling, because I don't think it's gonna pass. And I wish this was a month ago and we could have asked better questions and then maybe done something that would make sense for our town.
Yeah, I think it's too late with the March
We
30th. I
asked
mean,
good questions.
What?
Not to ask better questions, but it is kind of last minute.
No, it's become too last minute, but I think it would behoove us in the long run to understand Dorset
Well,
Avenue.
And I think that
Yes,
like, you know, I mean, whatever
would support
happens
that.
on March 30th is gonna change. You know, what the outcome is for Dorset and Kenwood and, you know, all of those things. So
If they, depends on what they do.
Well, right, that's what I'm saying. We
They
don't know
haven't-
what they're gonna do yet.
They
And
might not
so,
even.
and so we'll know more after that hearing.
Yeah, it's a battle. They're not gonna vote for 2 weeks, but it's a battle, but this group is battling.
Debbie,
Yeah.
do you recommend we, independent of all this is going on, propose an analysis of Dorset on our own timeline?
Yes, but not at this, I would like to see what happens.
You gotta find out what it's.
I want, yeah,
Got it.
let's table this for a little bit. Maybe it's the kind of thing we look at over the summer and the fall. We have to bring in the traffic committee and see what they think. But yeah, I think we have a Dorset issue and it'd be good to understand it instead of just opining what we think. I know what I think.
I think that needs to go to the traffic committee. and not,
Right. I don't
Right.
want to speak for them. Thank you though for listening,
Well, thank
guys.
you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anything else?
Are we done?
Yeah, we're done. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.
We need to set our relation meeting.